far you talked about many technical issues, about financing, about technologies, about safeguards, security, safety, and so on. And today, this session, we are going to talk about something a bit more non-technical, so to say, but extremely important, and that is stakeholder engagement and public perceptions of SMRs. Of course, this is not something new. We've been talking about stakeholder engagement and communication about nuclear for many years, and there is a lot of good work done around the world. There are also many lessons learned. However, as we enter this new era of nuclear with advanced technologies, it is timely that we continue and that we actually pay maybe more attention to this topic, especially related to SMRs. So we have interesting presentations lined up, and I would like to ask you to join me in welcoming our presenters here from my left. Alfitri Meliana from Indonesia, Izzat Idris from Malaysia, Beatriz Carvalho from Brazil, Ingrid Christen from Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, and Nara Vidyazmanto from, he comes from Germany, from an institute in Germany. So all their bios are uploaded on the app. I invite you to check them out. And last but not least, of course, my co-chair here today is Gabriel Pavel, who is Executive Director of the European Nuclear Education Network based in Belgium. So before we go into the first presentation, I invite Gabriel to address the session.
Thank you, Irena. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session. As Irena said, I would like to present very shortly my institution. We have been acting in the field of nuclear education for more than 21 years, and starting with 2021, if I may say so, seeing the potential of the SMRs and the rapid growth that these types of reactors had, we have chosen to invest some resources in this field. So we have been developing several actions in assessing the educational ecosystem, in assessing the needs, in assessing the capacities, but following these assessments, we have also started in designing some actions that could fulfill these gaps in competencies. Again, I'm talking only about the human resource. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel. A reminder before we go on with the presentations, we will have time at the end of all presentations for your questions. So please do ask questions because it's a good opportunity. And with that, I would like to invite Alfitri to present her paper for this conference, which explores the potential for deploying SMRs as part of Indonesia's strategy to achieve net zero emissions by 2060. So please.
Thank you, Irena. Thank you, Gabriel, for the introduction. So good morning, everyone. My name is Alfitri Meliana, and I work for the National Research and Innovation Agency of Indonesia. You can call it BRIN. And today I'll be presenting on the topic of the securing small modular reactor development in remote areas, the case studies, and the cultural analysis in Indonesia. So for you who might not know, that Indonesia is the archipelago countries with more than 1,300 ethnical groups, and we have like over 700 languages. And that's why this kind of the topic to securing the SMR in the remote areas can be challenging in Indonesia, especially we plan to have our first SMR in West Kalimantan. So in the next few minutes, I'll discuss why SMR are well suited for Indonesia and the unique challenges posed by deploying them in the remote areas, and how can we address those challenges by engaging local communities is and understanding the cultural dynamics. And then let's start by examining the broader energy context in Indonesia. So we have the long-term plan for Indonesian Emas 2045, and Indonesia's long-term energy strategy is guided by our Indonesia Emas 2045, which have targets in the main 5 targets is first the per capita income equivalent to developed countries, and then the poverty decreases and inequality decreases, and then we want to get the leadership and influence in the international world increasing, and of course the human research competitiveness also increasing, and last but not least is the drastic decrease in greenhouse gas emissions. And all of these targets, as part of this strategy, the nuclear energy will play the important role to achieve all of these targets. And for Indonesia's energy transitions related to the NPP here, we have 4 stages in energy transitions, breakdown in 2025 until 2029. We prepared to NPP regulations and the institutions. And then in 2030, we plan to have the first commission of commercial nuclear power plant in Indonesia. And then following that, we expect to expand our operations in 2035 until 2039. And by 2045, we plan to have full independence in nuclear energy. This is our status of nuclear power program in Indonesia. So we're currently in the phase 1, and previously we have 3 main locations for our first NPP. First is in Bangka, first is in Jepara, Java Island, and then the Bangka in Sumatra Island, and then the last is the West Borneo or West Kalimantan. We have a regulatory body or Bapeten, and then the owner and operator, and we also waiting for establishment of our NAPIA, but we have received in 2009 16 of the 19 nuclear infrastructure issues are ready by the INIR missions. And for Indonesia's energy sources, currently in 2025, we plan to have renewable energy less than 23%, but in 2050, we plan to have more than 31% of renewable energy. And then in oil, in 2025, we have more than 25%, and then in 2050, we want to have it less than 20%. And then why SMR are suitable for Indonesia? Because SMR are smaller, more flexible, and more cost-efficient than traditional large-scale of nuclear power plants. For a country like Indonesia, with its unique geographic layouts, we have more than 17,000 islands in Indonesia. SMRs offer distinct advantages. They can be developed in area where it is remote, and then where the area constructing the larger reactors will be too expensive or logistically challenging. And moreover, the ability of SMR to provide consistent energy supply makes them suitable for remote regions. And the access to reliable electricity can be difficult, and SMRs can reduce both time and cost associated with large infrastructure projects, providing a more visible solutions for energy generation in Indonesia. However, deploying the SMR in the remote areas might be challenging, especially in the security aspect. As we might know, the 3 main categories of threats that we need to consider. First is the physical threat. These include like sabotage, theft, and attack on the infrastructure. And then second one is the cybersecurity threat. With increasing the digitalization of nuclear systems, where there's a real risk of hacking, phishing attack, or manipulation of control systems, remote area may lack technical capacity to effectively manage the cyber attacks. And then, last but not least, is the societal threats. Perhaps the most complex are the societal challenge, like public oppositions, the local cultural dynamics and potential civil unrest, and also lack of nuclear trust. So let's see the Indonesian society and culture in West Kalimantan. So Indonesia is a highly diverse country, as I mentioned before, not only in terms of geography, but also in culture. And in West Kalimantan, this province has 5 million people. And the region is home to various ethnic groups, including the Dayak, Malay, Chinese, Javanese, Madurese, which has a different cultural values and social structures that influence their perceptions and acceptance of new technologies, including the nuclear energy. And if we see in the table on the right side here, this is the average length of formal educations in West Kalimantan. So let's see here, mostly men and women has averagely low education years in formal education years in Kalimantan, and therefore we need a strategy for community engagement should include the cultural sensitive and communication and addressing the specific concern of each ethnic group, and we must also mindful with the education background here. So the mitigation strategies. So there are two mitigation strategy, two approaches that we can go with this stakeholder engagement. First is the community engagement, and second is the educational campaign. For the community engagement, this involves directly engaging the local communities in the decision-making process, regular consultations, town halls meetings, and participatory decision-making area key to public trust. And we must ensure that local communities also engaging in this, involving local leaders and cultural bridge in reducing the misconceptions about nuclear energy, and the campaigns should highlight the safety, environmental benefits, and economic opportunities that SMRs can provide. Then, to reach the broadest audience, we need to use the various communication channels, including the social media, and then the local radio and community seminars. And by making the nuclear energy more understandable, we can help alleviate fears and build acceptance. And finally, I'd like to summarize the key points from today's presentations. And to conclude, Indonesia's energy needs and sustainable growth can be transformed by the SMRs. And SMRs' flexibility, safety, and adaptability for remote areas make them ideal for Indonesia's diversified energy and geographic setting. And the highlighted physical, cybersecurity, and societal security risks require multi-phase security methods. And community engagement and education are needed to overcome nuclear energy fears and misconceptions. Local community participation in decision making builds trust and acceptability, which SMR's initiative need to succeed. And last but not least is West Kalimantan case study shows how specialized tactics can solve regional and demographic obstacles, benefiting future developments. And that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alfitri. Our next speaker is Izzat Idris, who will present the findings of a study that investigates the knowledge and public awareness about small modular reactors in Malaysia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriel. My name is Muhammad Izzat Idris. I'm from National University of Malaysia. Today I'm honored to present to you about the study of knowledge and public awareness of small modular reactors in Malaysia. So before we go to the findings, let me introduce you the nuclear power program that happened in Malaysia. So we have 3 times attempt to have a nuclear power program in Malaysia since 1970. However, there is the issue of nuclear accident history, and even in Malaysia we discovered that we have a lot of oil and gas reserve, so that's why we postponed to have a nuclear power program. So we depend on much more on coal power plant, oil and gas. So and then last year we tried to have the 4th attempt, so I really hope that this is our final attempt to have a nuclear power plant. And then I will talk about what happened during 2007 and 2018. So in 2007, the government agreed to consider nuclear power as one of the options for power generations. 3 years after that, the government have agreed to establish the NEPIO, known as Malaysia Nuclear Power Corporation, MNPC. However, 1 year after that, the Fukushima accident happened. But the MNPC still stands and complete their studies within the 7 years. However, the NEPIO has been shut down due to the new government policy. So nuclear will not be considered as one of the options for power generation. So starting last year, so we have a hope to have a nuclear power program in Malaysia. So there is a clear statement in our parliament stated that the inclusion of one of nuclear-based power plant SMR unit with a capacity of 200 megawatt in the energy mix by 2050. Even we have several statements by our minister from Ministry of Energy Transition and Water Transformation and from the Ministry of Economy that they want to include the nuclear energy that derive from the small modular reactor. Last month, our Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability also said that since that we have a policy to phase out the coal power plant by 2040 and to achieve the net zero carbon by 2050, so that we will include, there is a potential that we include the nuclear energy in our energy mix in Malaysia. So the central issue facing nuclear energy, particularly SMR, which is a new technology, so public is still concerned regarding safety and environmental issues. Thus, the rationale of this study is to address this gap on what the public really knows and how they perceive of SMR. Our research explores this perception, ultimately providing insights that can give future energy policy. However, this is just a very fundamental studies, but it's a good start for us to know what can be done in the future. So we have developed the research question focuses on the nuclear energy, knowledge levels, awareness of SMR in Malaysia. So this research question has been developed based on several studies that have been done by several countries and also been guided by the IAEA document series. We try to get as many as possible the respondents with the diverse demographic, and our survey structure covering 5 sections, which is demographics, nuclear energy perception, SMR knowledge, awareness, and acceptance factors. So due to the limited time and budget, so we have done this project within 2 months. So that's why I said this is just very fundamental research, but it's a good start. So for the findings, this is the demographic profile of the responder. 56% is from the female and 44% from the male, with the age of 19 to 50 years old. And then 60% of them have the bachelor or master degrees. Nearly 70% of them is students. 32% is employed, which is from the research institute and from the regulators. So next, we move to the second section regarding the public perception. So 60% strongly agree that nuclear is a reliability source. However, there are concerns about safety and environmental risks, especially regarding due to the nuclear emergency. And then, again, they also agreed that the nuclear is a cost-effective energy source and it can contribute or combat the climate change, which is aligned with our SDG goals. However, again, there are two things that need to be highlighted, which is how we want to mitigate the accident risk and how we want to manage the nuclear waste. And then before we ask them a very specific knowledge or facts about the SMR, we ask them a brief question whether they know about SMR or not. So it's very small numbers, only nearly 7% claim that they know about the SMR. Then we ask them a very specific question about the characteristic of the SMR. So we ask them about the size, about the safety, what kind of fuel that can be used in the SMR, and what are the applications that can be used other than generating electricity. So we also ask them about the benefits of the SMR regarding the flexibility, as we know that the SMR is a modular reactor, and then about the passive system, and then the deployment of the remote area, and then cost effective. As you can see here, only 20% of them answered correctly our research question. So the overall knowledge levels on SMR, based on our findings, 60% of them have low knowledge levels of SMR, 34% demonstrate moderate understanding, and just 9% have knowledge about the SMR. And then about the awareness, despite the knowledge gap, there is a moderate awareness of SMR's key benefits. For example, only 50% of respondents knew the SMR could have other applications than generating electricity. Half of them also involved in some activities related to SMR, such as a conference, a seminar, workshop, class, and so on. So therefore, educating the public about the full range of SMR benefit could potentially increase the public acceptance. We also asked them whether they support of SMR development in Malaysia. 60% of them, even though we know that they have a less knowledge about the SMR, but 60% of them are supporting to have a development in Malaysia. 26% is neutral, and about 13% is against of the development. So if the government and the research institute play a vital role to promote the SMR, I think we can attract more public to know about the SMR. Right? And then we also asked about whether they prefer to have a SMR and conventional reactor. As you know, that most of them have less knowledge about the SMR, so that's why 51% of them has no preference. 33% prefer to have SMR over conventional reactors, and others prefer to have the conventional reactors. And then we also asked them about the factors influencing SMR, what the topics that should be highlighted if Malaysia want to go for nuclear energy. So these are the 4 topics that should be highlighted and covered, which is the environmental impacts, trust in authorities, so we need to have the transparency from the government. The energy should have the security, and the energy should have the cost effective. And then also we asked them, where do you get the information of SMR? So 51% of them say that they got the information of SMR from the internet, and then from 43% from the education, which is from the university, from the research institute, and less number is from the media and government itself. So I think this is very clear message to the government and policymakers to have more promotion, not SMR itself, but for the nuclear energy. So at least we can have a very transparent and dissemination of SMR information. So in conclusion, our brief study reveals that while public perception of SMR is low, there is a significant potential of these reactors to play a role in the country's future energy mix. The low-level knowledge presents a challenge, but also an opportunity to engage the public through education and outreach program. Strengthening public trust and addressing safety concerns will be critical steps in ensuring successful deployment of SMR in Malaysia. Thank you, and terima kasih.
Thank you, Izzat. And as a reminder, we will open the floor here for questions after all presentations. Our next speaker is Beatrice, who conducted a literature review to analyze public perceptions and acceptance of SMRs. So, Beatrice, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Beatriz Carvalho. I would like to thank the agency the opportunity to be here, and also I would like to thank Ms. Irina and Mr. Gabriel for their support during and before the conference. So, today I'll be presenting the study Systematic Review on Public Perception and Acceptance of Small Modular Reactors, Challenges and Strategies. The study was developed with my co-authors, Dr. Elaine Rodrigues and Dr. Devonei Andrade. The impacts of climate change can be perceived on several places of the world. The production and use of energy are the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions and the cause of global warming. As nuclear energy is a low-carbon source, it contributes on a large scale to a green energy. The level to which nuclear power can respond to long-term energy needs will be defined by the pace and adequacy of technological and political solutions to issues such as waste, safety, security, and non-proliferation. Small modular reactors could respond adequately to those issues with a simpler, standardized, and safer modular design. However, achieving climate mitigation objectives with the support of SMRs requires rapid deployment, which may be limited by institutional, social, and behavioral issues. In this context, the aim of this study is to analyze public perception and acceptance of SMRs. This study was developed through a broad and systematic review of the literature, through the scientific databases, Web of Sciences, and Scopus. The search string used is in this table. And after the analysis of the results, 17 studies were kept for the realization of this study. So to create the co-authorship chart by country, the 17 publications were reviewed to extract the list of authors and their affiliations. Authors were grouped by country to identify collaborations, and countries were classified into two categories: Global North for countries with developed economies, and Global South representing developing countries. An analysis of the co-authorship network of these publications identified 47 authors from 11 countries, the majority from the United States and Canada, which suggests a strong research base in these countries that have invested significantly in developing SMRs as part of their strategies to decarbonization and energy security. It was also identified few international collaborations, which may suggest that most studies were conducted independently by each country or national collaboration, a pattern that may be influenced by barriers such as infrastructure, funding policies that favor national collaborations. The vast majority of publications identified involve countries from the Global North, with only 2 studies involving researchers from the Global South. This can be attributed to great investment in research and development of SMRs, more advanced scientific infrastructure, and policies that encouraging research. So the bibliometric analysis identified a small number of publications and highlighted research gaps that directly involve the human, social, and behavioral aspects related to development of nuclear technology in general, and specifically in relation to SMRs. So the main results are: it was noticed that the nuclear industry is very sensitive to public opinion. Negative events have greater influence on public opinion than positive events and have led to a general loss of confidence in nuclear power. Besides that, perceived ideas held by the general public that do not necessarily represent knowledge and facts also contribute to nuclear energy being a controversial subject. So there's a necessity for well-designed and continuous marketing strategies for the presentation and development of SMRs projects with new approaches for the involvement of scientists, companies, regulators, and decision makers. In this context, directives were identified to create political and financial support development and acceptance of SMRs, and to familiarize the public with nuclear energy and create social support. It was also noticed some insecurity about the use of nuclear power, and especially the use of SMRs, on the part of indigenous populations, who are skeptical about its necessity. Although SMR generates less waste than traditional nuclear power plants, public resistance and opposition does not seem to be particularly sensitive to the amount of waste produced, but rather to their existence itself. Also, the public perception of the risk associated with a new technology will have major impact on its support. It was noticed that the growing impacts of climate change are contributing to a shift in public opinion about energy sources in the United States and in the European Union. Also, there are research gaps on the necessity and feasibility of SMRs deployment and the selection of suitable sites. There's a need for a strengthened international nuclear safety regime on SMRs and the development of highly competent and independent national regulatory systems. The operations are strongly influenced by external factors linked to the acceptance of the local community, impacts of the well-being of the population, and historical and political aspects of the life cycle of SMRs. It's necessary an analysis of the soft power mechanisms for the acceptance of SMRs development. The characteristics of SMRs, such as a simpler and safer energy source and ease of transportation, installation, and expansion, are not enough to influence countries to invest in this technology. Countries with implemented nuclear energy capacities may have easier public support for the implementation of SMRs. So the literature on SMRs is largely strategic, with important knowledge gaps in relation to social, political, and cultural aspects. Public acceptance is one of the most important social issues in relation to the installation of SMRs. Public and stakeholder opinion is an important topic on the impact of wind, solar, and hydropower projects, but is absent in the literature of SMRs. Without social acceptance, SMRs technologies will have a great difficulty in being widely applied. There's a low involvement of social scientists and policy experts to support the advancement of SMRs as an alternative source. Community consultation, public education, and policy co-production are central elements for technology production and sustainable transitions. So to conclude, it was noticed that the literature about the subject is multidisciplinary, but is still incipient. Also, there's a significant research gap on the social-political aspects of SMR acceptance. In addition, international collaboration and continued investment in research are key to the advancement and successful implementation of SMRs. For SMRs to become a viable solution for decarbonization and energy security, a coordinated effort is needed to engage the public, educate about the benefits of this technology, and develop regulatory policies that support its implementation. New and innovative research also needs to be developed beyond the technical issues of SMRs, addressing social, political, and cultural issues to contribute to the development of more balanced and informed approaches. So these are the sources used to conduct this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Next, we will hear from Ingrid, who will speak about the importance of early stakeholders' engagement to ensure successful deployment of SMRs in the Global South. Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. This paper was written by myself and Tony Stott. We're South African, and I used to work for the Department of Foreign Affairs, was a diplomat for 20 years, and Tony worked at our energy utility in Eskom in South Africa, and then at the IEA, supporting countries in embarking on nuclear power. Now we work at the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, which works to promote peace and security through research, dialogue, and capacity building. And our focus is on accelerating peaceful uses within the pillar 3 of the NPT, safely, sustainably, securely, and responsibly. Why SMRs? And I mean, you don't need to be told this, but I found very telling. If we look at Africa and people who do not have access to electricity in Africa, they number this. It is the same number of people as the total population of the US, Canada, and Europe. And SMRs is the one potential possibility that the majority of countries in the Global South has for nuclear power. And nuclear power is the contribution that we need to, of course, bring about the end of energy poverty, achievement of the environmental goals, and also other development goals. So in the work that we've been doing, design of small
Investment in research are key to the conducted this
safely, sustainably, security, achievement of the environmental goals and also other development goals. So in the work that we've been doing, So we wrote this paper on the value of early engagement between stakeholders to ensure the successful deployment of SMRs in the Global South. And in the work we've been doing, we've identified then what are the risks related to accelerating access to peaceful uses, accelerating the deployment of small modular reactors. So the first risk we identified was that there's limited engagement to date between developers of small modular reactors as well as the end users, the potential end users in the Global South. The risk of that and the challenge of that is that designs will be finalized by the developers, and as we've seen with so many advanced technologies, these designs are then finalized without taking into account the particular requirements and specificities, needs in developing countries. With regard to the SMRs, it would have potentially make it difficult to deploy because of the burden on safeguards burden and the regulatory burden in general. Many countries, as we know, don't have yet that level of regulatory, the regulatory capacity. Even if they have that regulatory capacity, but to regulate nuclear power as such, and it would ultimately result in higher costs for end users due to backfitting, etc., with regard to ensuring that these technologies are more easily safeguarded. So there's also the other risk that countries of the Global South will believe that these technologies are just not for them and that it won't be sustainably deployed in these countries. limited engagement with international financial institutions. This has been a key theme of this meeting here today or this week, with official development assistance funders and philanthropies on peaceful uses. So the risk there is, of course, that there's not enough funding that will be, we will continue to struggle with funding for not only nuclear power as such, but also for non-power applications, and that the philanthropies, the investment institutions, the international banks, etc., and the ODA funders will continue to ignore peaceful uses. And one of the things that is really essential is that in the next 10 to 15 years, as these technologies are being developed, that there is more investment in non-power applications in countries so that that can pave the way for nuclear power in the long term, also development of capacity, as we know, etc. And for that, the IAEA needs more support. Countries need more support, and when we are looking at development assistance, philanthropic funding, for instance, there we're looking at $8 to $10 billion a year that is being invested by philanthropies alone for climate action, and $8 to $10 billion for sustainable development action, of which none is going to anything nuclear. So it is important to engage with these institutions and foundations as soon as possible so that they can start to understand better the benefits of peaceful uses, and also to understand better the risks, the real risks, and what the IAEA, for instance, and our regulators are doing to manage those risks. Another additional benefit is that we would be able to, if they understand better how the risks are being managed, there is the potential of including additional conditions of supply in future for developing countries is reduced, because there will be a better understanding of what we are already doing. So how do we address this? And this, for us, has been about early engagement with the SMR developers. Firstly, if we look at risk one, as I've said, I've already touched on this, that there's a better understanding, firstly, from the technology developers, that they understand the needs in the countries and also the requirements in those countries and the obligations the countries need to meet before they can have acquire these technologies, and also for the end users, that they have a better understanding of what are the technologies and what do these technologies offer, and how can this technology be included into their energy mix, and what they need to do in the next 10 to 15, 20 years to ensure that they can actually, that these technologies can be sustainably deployed. So the next risk that we'd identified, of course, with the philanthropies, etc., again, to have a platform where we can engage with these more platforms, more engagement, more opportunities where we can engage with these financial institutions, philanthropies, etc. So this, we've been identifying this over a period of time, and of course everyone at this conference has also realized that this is an issue, and we've all come together here with the IAEA having organized this meeting, which is one of the first multi-stakeholder engagement opportunities. And we do see how difficult it is to get financial institutions here, to get philanthropies here. So that remains a key challenge that has to be addressed. If we are, in this engagement, so what we did is in April last year, April this year, we organized in collaboration with our partners. So we developed VCDMP developed a strategic partnership with Wilton Park in the UK, and with Dalberg, which is a development agency, development project implementer and designer that works with official development assistance organizations. And we looked at how best we could address these challenges that we've identified and bring together all of these stakeholders. We started with Africa because of the tremendous challenges that we face in Africa, and because we are most comfortable and knowledgeable in our engagement with Africa. And so we started with Africa, and we had this meeting in April, and we brought policymakers and regulators from 11 African countries. We had 5 small modular reactor developers there. The Novo Nordisk Foundation, which is the biggest philanthropic foundation globally at the moment, from Denmark, participated. And there were also presentations by potential investors, banks, and then international experts from the IEA, but also many who are here during this conference came to engage and discuss regulatory and legislative perspectives, financial perspectives, issues around stakeholder involvement and perception perspectives, and then infrastructure perspectives. And so, just to go back, okay, I'm not going to be able to go. Okay, so what was really beneficial of that meeting was that we had all these stakeholders in the room. We were able to engage. We were able to make those connections between individuals and start and have proposals of how do we move, what do we need to do in the next 10 to 15 years, and where the gaps are. And gaps are definitely on how do we communicate on peaceful uses, getting more of the financial institutions and the philanthropies at the table. And so I also participated in the Oppenheimer Dialogue in New York during Climate Week, in which we had philanthropies around the table, and we talked to them about all of this that we've said, that I've mentioned now, the need to engage with the benefits of peaceful uses. What are we doing as the IEA, as the global community, ensuring that these technologies are safe and secure and sustainable? And finally, what can philanthropies do to support the work that we are doing and to help to accelerate the deployment of small modular reactors as part not only of reaching environmental goals, but also development goals and ending energy poverty. And so the value of early engagement, just quickly to summarize, is that we can ensure early investment, that there is more technology access, sustainable access, because there's an understanding of the technologies and their impact. For that, we need bold leadership by civil society, which includes philanthropies and many of us that are here. We need new partnerships with all of these partners that are both known and new partners that have not engaged on nuclear. And this will take us towards, of course, a more secure future. And you are welcome to go onto our website, VCTMP, and you will find further information there. And we have the report of the conference in South Africa and the outcomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ingrid. And we have one more presentation on the agenda, and it will discuss how to optimize risk communication about SMRs. Nara, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nara. I'm from Germany. I work in Germany at KIT, Cultural Institute of Technology. So I'm going to present one of my paper here. Clearly, I would like to make it clear that the view that I'm going to present here does not represent KIT as a whole, let alone Germany, but is one of the research interests that I'm doing when I'm researching about what philosophy and ethics or social science in general can do to benefit public communication for SMR. So the work that I'm presenting here is called Resilient Energy Systems as a Goal for Risk-Informed Approaches. Why? Why resilient energy systems? Simply because a lot of us, when we are talking about SMRs, technology, or business, we are talking with a techno-economic language. We talk about technology, we talk about engineering, we talk about economics. Those are fine and dandy, but I think what we can also do, what we can also add into our communication, is by looking for a common language. A common language that somehow represents a concern from our public. Not only concern, but also represents the interest and the need of our public. And here, I propose, let us talk about resilience. Now, I'm going to give like a brief overview about SMR's development around the world. This is something that we have already got during the very first keynote on the very first day of this conference, so I'm not going to stay here for too long. And then I'm going to address my proposal about resilient energy system as a bridge between experts and the public. And then I'm going to talk about the policy relevance of using resilience as a communication tool and some concluding remarks. So now I'm going to talk about some general statistics. Of course, as you might have already known, so we have several SMRs around the world, and the green here, of course, the green here, of course, represents SMRs under development, and then with assessments included in the NEA SMR dashboard, and the light green represents also SMR under development, but without included assessment, and then we have the gray here, representing SMRs not under active development at the time of the publication. The publication was somewhere in mid-2024. Now, here we have a bit of a concern because, well, roughly half of our SMR are still under development and assessment. And when we talk about the distribution of SMR, if we want to make this technology spread globally, then we have a bit of a concern because here, if we are really thinking about the real SMRs, like technologies physically already being developed, now the distribution somehow is concentrated on the US, Canada, a lot in Russia, and some other in China. The rest of the countries here, they're still in an early stage. So now we can have like a general idea that if we want to somehow speed up the development of small modular reactors, I think it would be wise to concentrate more, not on the very first 5 countries up there, because we can kind of assume that they have like a good public perception on SMRs, and we would like to communicate a bit more to countries down under. Now, of course, now what we can get from all of those statistics, we can, well, of course, it is some general understanding. We know that there are emerging technologies, and we can have like a good expectations that we will have more and more SMR in the next decade, the next 10 to 15 years. However, we have a bit of a problem here, because if you look back here into the graph, a lot of these countries are not only new to SMRs, they are also new to nuclear technology. So this is why public communication, proper communication, and common language and concepts are important. Now, why am I talking about resilience? Because it is, of course, it is a concept, an idea, and so on, but it also represents a problem. When we talk about resilience and we are communicating and promoting SMR, we are talking about the readiness of our energy system, and by energy system I really mean energy mix, not only nuclear but also with other technology, The readiness of an energy system to bounce forward. Basically, it is the ability of the energy system to stabilize itself, to respond against disruption, and to get back better. And the purpose of resilience is to provide sufficient and stable energy. So here we are not only talking about the goodness and the technicalities of SMRs, but we are talking about why they are important. Because they provide sufficient and stable energy. And how do we do that? Well, we have some experts here by including experts in engineering, in management, and in social institutions. What do I mean by all of these? Now, it is important that when we are talking about resilience, we are talking about not only about risk, but about risk information. We are talking about distributing, how to properly distribute information so that risk as we perceive, as experts, business actors, engineers, governments perceive regarding SMRs, is also the same risk perceived by the public. Now, that's why we need to have some kind of common issue, and one of the common issues here, for example, is stable electricity supply. Basically, we are talking about somehow meeting together, matching together the idea, the techno-economic approach of SMR into social aspects of the technology at energy systems level. Now, here there are some. I'm gonna go a bit sharper into what I mean by techno-economic and a goal. So we can talk, for example, about design risk, and we can talk about how to implement electricity in SMR. But when we are talking about social aspects, we are talking about social acceptability, what is acceptable for people when we are talking about SMRs. We are talking about who are affected by in both negative and positive terms. So in what way are they affected? Now, the idea here is we kind of have to add into our conception of what risk, technically, economically, into who is at risk, who is at benefit, what kind of benefit that public can accept, that public can receive from our technology, from our proposal. Now here, I'm going to talk a bit about the relevance in SMR policymaking. So, yeah, most likely we're going to talk about this kind of proposal is going to talk mainly about nuclear policy making. And the idea here is to focus on potential effect on social capability and vulnerability. I'm going to explain what I mean by societal capability and vulnerability. Basically, it means, for example, if we have a technical language like probability of radioactive accidents, technical reliability and price of SMR technology, or the stability of the uranium market, for example, we can try to translate them into expressions that public can understand. For example, well, is it fair for the public? Will your public have larger job opportunities? And would I have stabler and more sufficient and affordable electricity? And here's some example case. So, for example, when you are talking about SMRs development in developing countries, especially countries with no experience whatsoever with nuclear power, meaning that they want to build their very first NPP ever, and it happens to be SMR. So we can talk about, for example, we have a language about the ability to withstand the shock, what kind of stability can be improved from SMR, and the contribution of SMR to system stability. These are good language for public policy, but when we are somehow trying to make it more speaking into the public, then we can talk about, okay, what does it mean to withstand shock? Okay, it means to reach full electrification ratio. When we are talking about improved stability, we are talking about access to abundant and affordable electricity. When we are talking about contribution to system stability, we are talking about the rise of electrification ratio per money spent, for example. And another example that I would like to draw from is, for example, when we are talking, the example about Google wanting to adopt SMR has been talked about. So if experts can talk about, if among experts, we are talking about the stability of SMR, or probably like the cost, or probably the installation capacity, the amount of electricity needed, if we want our public to get more engaged, I think we can also like add more aspect to it. We can translate it into, okay, is there any accident scenarios that the public is facing and whether or not they are acceptable? And then we can talk about which part of the public is well informed about SMR's risks and benefit. It is good to talk about risk, but I think it is better to talk also to add benefits into it. Because public's perception about risk is also the how good or how bad risk is also influenced by the benefit that they're gonna receive. So we need to also add into the way we communicate safety and risk and stability. Now, my purpose here is actually to promote the importance of consideration for societal aspects for SMRs when we are communicating to the public. And we need to talk also about, and when we are talking about SMR risk, benefit, the technicalities of it, we need to understand also the case-specific SMRs. Like, for example, is your public someone or a government or business actors from countries with no experience from SMR? Who is your public? Make it clear. And also, we need to talk about, well, another beneficial language here would be, okay, what kind of societal capability or vulnerability that is improved or probably aggravate or probably that remains stagnant due to SMR's presence. That would be it from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nara. We have now heard from all 5 speakers, and we are opening up and inviting our guests to address them questions.
Okay, gentleman here was the first, I would think.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentations. I am González from the authorities of Argentina. To my German friend, I would like to ask 2 questions. Well, the first one is I suggest you to make a small correction because you mentioned a few countries really doing SMR rather than talking about the SMRs, and you forgot Argentina, which is the SMR of Argentina is probably one of the more advanced construction in this moment. Therefore, I will suggest to correct your slide. And then I have a question. I know that you said that you were not talking on behalf of any German institution, but perhaps you can clarify why Germany, that was perhaps the country that did more efforts in stakeholder involvement, was really a fantastic effort. Then the final result was that Germany destroyed his successful German industry, nuclear industry, in addition to stop the program. But I believe that more important than stop the program was even to destroy the industry. I have been very recent in Erlangen, that used to be as you know, the center of nuclear engineering in the world. And in Erlangen there is nothing really, few empty buildings. And this was done not only with the stakeholder involvement, but with the involvement of probably the only prime minister in the world that was an expert in the field. I mean, she was doctor in chemical quantity, and therefore it's very surprising. I mean, that after such an effort in stakeholder involvement, the final result is a disaster. If you can comment on that, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for the comment. For the first about the correction, yeah. Thank you for the correction. I'm gonna add it to my slide and to my paper. And I assume so. I get 2 points here after the correction. Okay, why Germany is so into stakeholder engagement? So we have a research institution. It's called Office of Technology Assessment, the Institute of Technology Assessment and System Analysis. Basically, it talks about the acceptability of technology by means of, well, survey, interview, and why are we so into the stakeholder involved? Why are we so into society's perception? Because, well, it is exactly in relation with your second question. I personally do not see, I also personally I feel a bit heartbroken by Germany's decision to phase out from nuclear power. But I think it can also serve as a good example of how society that is not sufficiently informed, or probably they understand about the risk, but probably they perceive the risk differently. Somehow, different information. It's not even different information. Different perception about risk, about how bad or how good the risk is, can also really change public policy. We are probably looking at the same number of the same statistics of risk, safety, whatever aspect that you want to highlight on. But the way we perceive them, it's different. And Germany is a prime example of it. If you look into if you want to get into the Germany's nuclear phase out, the documents in 2011, it's about the Energiewende. There is a lot of well, abstract ideas about ethics, morality. Those are fine and dandy, but this actually another. Once again, it's a good example of how your perception about the exact same number that we are facing will really affect the acceptability of a technology.
Thank you, Nara. Please.
Hello, Yulia Chernikovskaya, Rosatom Group. Very much inspired by all the speakers, but let me kindly ask the further clarifications regarding Kalimantan consideration. And there was a special references and special study for it, but as there are several not just nations and ethnic groups, but several countries on the island. In your research, did you consider the stakeholders' engagement from the neighboring countries as well? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Julia. So yes, currently our research is mainly focused on the local communities first, because we have, aside from many other countries like Malaysia and Brunei Darussalam in one island, we mainly focus on the local culture, the diversity of cultures and local communities first, to see the public acceptance in the local communities to build SMR there. And then maybe in the next step, we will consider the acceptance of the public in the international public within neighboring countries. So thank you.
Thank you. There was a question, I believe, here.
Thank you. I have two, so if there isn't enough time, we can just ask one. I'm Lisa Landy with Nuclear Power Energy section here. I have one question for Johannes and one from Beatrice. First, I'll ask Johannes. Johannes, when you talk about resilience, it's near and dear to my heart. We're writing our first publication on resilience here at the IAEA. Are you saying that a common language would allow ease to translate across, hence gain more understanding and buy-in from stakeholder?
Yeah, because when I said about common language, it is not only about terms, and it's good. I think it's interesting that you're also writing about resilience. It's also my first paper, the one before this one.
Great.
It's also about resilience. Because the idea here is that when you're talking about common language, you're talking about basically trying to make a term into a problem, trying to come up with a term from a problem. Mm-hmm. So resilience, I see here, it's not just like a buzzword or a jargon when we are talking about nuclear resilience, energy resilience, fuel supply resilience, for example. We are really first and foremost talking about a problem, a concrete problem, and then we try to abstract that into language that we share. In that regards, we can talk about resilience. The resilience as understood by nuclear business, in the business world, in the engineering world, and from the governments and from the public, could probably refer to a different problem, could probably be experienced differently, but it is a resilience issue nonetheless. So I do think that yes, a common language is very important when we want to advance the development of SMRs.
Thank you, Johannes. I'll be reaching out to you. And then quickly, Beatrice, you had talked about indigenous people and identifying that they weren't really clear on whether nuclear was a necessity. And I was just curious if that was truly where they were coming from, or was it also conceivably related to philosophical belief, spirituality, etc.? Thank you.
English is not my first language, and I'm working this as I go, so I'm sorry. But I believe you are right. They are very connected to that, to their territory. So something being installed on it could affect their oh my, sorry. Yes. So I believe it's not only about the necessity of nuclear technology, but also their connection with their land, with their territory.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. So we had a question all the way down, then we had here in the middle, and then here, and then to the right. We'll follow up. So first, the gentleman all the way in the back.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kok Kiat from Singapore Regulatory Agency. Just want to ask one question each, if I can, for colleagues from Malaysia and Indonesia. For Malaysia, I just wonder what is the population sample size in your survey, and would there be an expected difference in support level if a survey was conducted for the community that is in the proximity of the potential site? So that's one question. And the other question for our colleague from Indonesia would be, is there a preference of technology, whether is it the traditional large MPP or SMR, depending on whether there is energy demand from industry at different locations? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. So I forgot to explain the numbers of respondents. So the respondents number is nearly 200 respondents. Yes, we try to get as many as possible response from the public. However, as I mentioned, due to the limited time, so that's why the number is very small. So I think we try also to have, for the second question, we try to have a very diverse background from the respondents, the universities, from the research institute, from the stakeholders, industries, so that might we have a very different view of SMR and nuclear energy itself. So I think yes, if we got a very different background of the responder, I think it will influence the results or the findings. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So, as far as I know, currently our research is more into the SMR, and our government also, rather than choosing the large NPP, we are more into this, considering SMR as our first commercial NPP in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question here in the middle, please.
Hi, I'm Seth Kirshenberg. I'm the Executive Director of Energy Communities Alliance, the organization in the United States that represents the local governments around current and potentially future nuclear facilities. And I thank you very much for your presentation. I found it very interesting. One of the interesting things that we have found in our communities is they ask two primary questions, which is, when will these facilities come online and how much will they cost? We always have siting issues no matter what, even with wind farms and everything else. and obviously with nuclear. But we're seeing less and less because there's an excitement, especially by the younger people, for new carbon-free energy on many of the questions that are traditionally raised with large nuclear power projects. Are you all seeing that same dynamic, and what do you all think of that, from your experience in your studies?
Who would like to answer first? Ingrid, would you please? You just speak.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I think there's particularly a lot of with SMRs, because they're smaller, because the sense that the overwhelming size and of big nuclear power plants are countered by the idea of having smaller reactors is definitely something that makes them more acceptable and will make them more acceptable to the public. And in terms of younger people now engaging on nuclear power and better understanding that without nuclear power as part of the energy mix, we're not going to be reaching these our climate goals and our development goals. I think that also shows the impact of the influences, or the nuclear influences, that are taking to Twitter and to YouTube, etc., and have been influencing in a positive direction young people from the ages of 18 upwards, even 14 upwards. And I found with my son, who's 18 years old, that one of the Oppenheimer movie, for instance, had a huge impact on his age group. One, in terms of showing how dangerous nuclear weapons are, but also showing how important and essential and how interesting nuclear technology, science and technology is. So I think there's a lot more interest around amongst young people and a lot more acceptance than the older communities.
Thank you. Anybody else here on the stage would like to add something, please?
Well, in terms of a number and time, I don't think I can comment a lot on it. I mean, we just phase out from nuclear, right? But when oddly, in Germany, when we are talking about engagement of young people, we have a rising engagement and rising interest from young people, particularly with regards to nuclear power. So, of course, we can probably it is due to a political issue and everything. That's also fine. But the idea is that later on, when you're looking into the, let's say, the acceptance situation, especially among young people in Germany, I think there are more and more now. Right now, we have rising awareness about the importance of nuclear power, especially because Germany is. Well, this is my own personal. This is my personal reading, of course. Especially because we are very ambitious with our project for e-fuels, for example, and for hydrogen production. So I think somehow the development of these of other non-nuclear climate goals somehow affect the passion for young people to be more supportive towards the nuclear power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to say something? Or we move to, there was a question here. Please go ahead.
Yusuf Shatila from Idaho National Lab, USA. So before we move to my question, I'd like to second the gentleman from Argentina. So, Nara, it was not the perception of the same number, it's what manipulation of public opinion seeing the same number, which is a big difference. Now, going back to my question, and I agree with you, Germany was on top of the world in the 50s and 60s, and then politics changed in Germany, everything went downhill. To my question, yesterday there was a gentleman from Finland contrasting or trying to caution us about the poor performance of recent nuclear builds in the West, especially Vogel, 3 and 4 in Europe. And then he says, we'll overrun about $36 billion for 2 power plants, AP1000. But then he said, well, he didn't actually stop there. I wanted him to continue to compare that to the good performance of nuclear power in the UAE. It's a 4 nuclear power plants, APR 1400, 5.6 gigawatt, $32 billion. Why is that? It's not technical, because the technology is mature, both built by 2 competent companies, Westinghouse and TEPCO. So it must be the environment. And environment is not the hot weather or humidity. It's maybe the executive branch, maybe the legislative branch, maybe public perception. So it's worth a study, and I'm directing that question to you all. Why did this happen? Maybe the answer is in the manipulation of public perception. What is it? What is it? Because it's not technology. Thank you.
I would like to pursue on that. So when we're talking about public perception, I agree with you. There's a bit. When we're talking about public, our tendency is to think about public as one monolith, as one entity. Like, okay, when we are talking about public in nuclear power, we are really talking about non-engineer, non-policymakers, non-business actors. Those are like one entity, we call them public. But if you want to really get into the detail, we can still like split the public into, let's say, probably like three groups. First, we are talking about knowledgeable group. These are people who have the fundamental, the basic knowledge, basic information about nuclear power. We have interested group, and we have the rest. Now, we want to get more and more people, at least to build interest into the nuclear power, so that in return they will be more knowledgeable. So this is why I think it is important. Communication is important, so that the issue that you mentioned, the possibility of manipulation of information, public manipulation, whatever you want to call it, it can be dampened. So we really want to see, first, do not see our public as one monolith, but really we get more and more public, at least to be more interested into nuclear power, even better into a new technology such as SMR. Thank you.
Please, Ingrid.
Would it not also be, I wonder, the rate at which, as you were saying, the legislative and regulatory and within the country, the rate at which as well one is able to license, one is able to process, and that it is less costly, because we see with SMRs as well the challenges that countries like the US have in terms of licensing new technologies. Because, I mean, definitely we have the interaction and the different layers of both government and public that need to be on board, and that facilitates. But you also have just being able to, which I would imagine in China you'd have the same situation where you would have, and in Russia potentially, is where you would have the building of nuclear power plants is much more, there is less challenges to actually getting them off the ground, and there's more investment in those technologies, and there is capacity to build them and to run them.
Thank you very much. We had a question here. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I am Katerina Pilugina, representing Nuclear Vocational Education and Training Community. And thank you very much for all speakers for your insightful presentations. But I have a question to Dr. Gabriel Pavel. Does your European Nuclear Education Network have any support to SMR embarking states? And if yes, what kind of support? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, as I said at the beginning, we have some actions developed for education and training in SMRs, and although my organization is focused on the European context, we have a special line dedicated to non-European countries, and we do have a strong support, but not only a strong support to these countries, but also a strong feedback from them. And I might say that our actions dedicated to them are really successful. We are having a lot of respondents and a lot of participants to these actions. Thank you.
So thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I don't see any. I do see some hands in the room. Please go ahead. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to ask from Germany, Mas Nara. You mentioned about the common language. It is very interesting because different country has a different or unique culture. So what is the best tool to have the common language for Indonesia? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before I get into what the language is, I think it's also like understandable to see that how to share a bit about how to get a common language. How to get that, what you need to do is to see what people value. What people value is what people consider important. And for Indonesia, I would use resilience. I think it translates into ketahanan energy resilience, ketahanan energy. And it will be important because now from that one language, you are talking about, if you are part of the government, you are talking about how to raise your individual, how to raise the national GDP, for example. And if you are talking about resilience to the grassroots, you're basically talking about very elementary things like how can I have a cheaper electricity bill? What is my opportunity to get a better job? If you put SMRs into in the country, and how would I eliminate outage in the whole year? Because I think in Indonesia we have 1.6 outage ratio per capita. Of course it is already normalized. So when you address those problems, I will still stick with the ketahanan energy or resilience here.
Thank you. We had one more question. Yep, gentlemen.
So good morning. Thank you for the presentations. My name is Jose Bastos, and I'm now a private consultant. But before I was working at the agency in embarking countries, and we followed many of the countries that were starting their programs and their stakeholder involvement programs. And here we have two cases, which is Indonesia and Malaysia, that had very robust programs in the past that, let's say, somehow stopped. And this is a pattern that we see in many embarking countries, which is this stop-and-go mode. They start programs, then they stop, then they come back again, then they stop. And in my particular evaluation, somehow it is related to stakeholder involvement, but not the public, but the political community of the country, because a project goes beyond the mandate of a government. So my question is, for these countries, what you are doing to engage the oppositions in your countries to the nuclear power program to have something more sustainable and that you're not stopping 2 or 3 years?
Start with first. Okay, thank you for your questions. Yeah, I totally agree with you that, as I mentioned in my slides, that we have 5 years elections. So every 5 years of the new government, they have a new policy, and then it changed the energy policy. So we have the NEPIO back then, but the new government policy that they want to have a nuclear power plant, then they change. But the current government, yes, they prefer to have a nuclear because we have the coal power plant phase out by 2040. So that's why they prefer to have a nuclear. So I think, yes, we need to engage, I think from the universities, from the research institute, we need to engage with the stakeholders, particularly the member of the parliament, to have a very strong policy that any government become the any government that become the government should continue the policy of the nuclear. So I think it's the best way to have a strong policy on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So for Indonesia case, yes, we have a lot of change in political issues and political visions, especially regarding with the nuclear energy. But the engagement strategies that we are doing and has done with the previous president, and maybe current presidents, is to how to get ownerships from them, from the political or from the other governments like presidents, like ministries, to come to our research reactor and to see what is the benefits of nuclear power. And then and also the international cooperations like the net zero emissions, like Paris agreements, also make them more aware of the benefit of nuclear energy. And other than that, we also increasing the nuclear awareness to our government, to our ministries and other government bodies, so they can more engaging and they can have more agreement and have more one vision to get nuclear power in Indonesia. Thank you.
Ingrid, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just quickly want to add, I think what we've seen as well is that the big nuclear power builds are so far, so out of the reach of the majority of countries. And when they do embark on nuclear power, and that time frame is so long ahead, and there are so many challenges. And with SMRs now, and the advent of SMRs, and the potential that we are looking at a 10, 15-year deployment in future, there is much more engagement and much more enthusiasm, and it's something that I think feels more real for countries, and I think there we would see a longer-term investment and interest.
Thank you very much. I think we have reached the end of our session today. I would like to thank the participants and also the audience for having such a good questions, and I would like to give the floor to Irena for some last words.
Yes, I just wanted to say, well, yes, I join Gabriel in thanking our panelists for maybe bringing some new ways of thinking about stakeholder engagement for SMRs, and of course the audience and your questions. And we will. I think one of the conclusions here is that stakeholder engagement is really crucial for nuclear power programs regardless of technologies, and we will continue this conversation. The IEA will continue supporting its member states on this topic, including, please mark your calendars, at next year's first international conference on stakeholder engagement for nuclear power programs that is going to take place in this very room from 26th to 30th of May 25. So thank you all very much.
And I pray, oh my God, do I pray every single day for a revolution. So cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed, just to get it all out, what's in my head, and I'm feeling a little peculiar. So wake in the morning and I step outside, and I take a deep breath and I get real high, and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, 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 hey. I say, hey.
this plenary session, we Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning, esteemed colleagues and guests. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the final plenary session of the IAEA International Conference on Small Modular Reactors and Their Applications. The focus of this plenary session is innovative industrial involvement from design to manufacturing. I hope you all enjoyed the final technical sessions that we had this morning. And following this plenary session, we will transition directly to our closing session of the conference, so we request you to stay in your seats. Industrial involvement is one of the 19 nuclear infrastructure issues from the IAEA's milestone approach to be developed in any nuclear power program. The IAEA provides assistance in exploring the many considerations and decisions involved in preparing other national industries for participation in a nuclear power program. How do we inspire the local or regional industry, such as technical support organizations, designers, or manufacturers, to get involved? How do we build local or regional industry with innovation in mind so that the SMR project can benefit? And how the SMR vendors can involve the supply chain since the development phase to accelerate the deployment? How do we show potentially industry participants that the nuclear project is ready to take their innovative solutions, like the use of artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, or digital twins, which are already deployed in other energy industries? We hope to take on these questions during this discussion. Today we are privileged to have with us a distinguished panel of experts who are involved with developing and supporting the industrial involvement in their countries. Each of our speakers brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, playing different roles from research institutes, policy and technical organizations, owner groups, technical consultants, and project developers. I encourage all of you to actively participate in the discussion, ask questions, and share your perspectives. I will now turn it over to Aninda Duttarey from the Division of Nuclear Power to begin our panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, Conference Chair, and dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aninda Duttarey, and I'm a nuclear engineer providing technical support on contracting, construction, and commissioning of nuclear power plants here at the IAEA Division of Nuclear Power. So I have the great pleasure of being your moderator today, and grateful to have our panelists join us for this important topic on innovative industrial involvement. Over the past days, through multiple plenaries, we've been involved on discussions about the end users, regulatory preparedness, innovative SMRs, and capacity building. And we needed all of those conversations first to have this last plenary on industrial involvement. All that input and all that effort needs to be translated and communicated to the local industry in your country, or your existing nuclear industry if you have one. Communicating the SMR project in your country, demonstrating certainty, and thus opportunity to get involved in the projects. So as mentioned, industrial involvement, if we can have the slides, please, is one of the 19 infrastructure issues which is to be developed in any nuclear power program. When we look at this simple diagram, we take note of recognizing and assessing the existing local industrial capacity. You can see that on the right. And also the goal of expanding to support the industrial involvement for a nuclear power program. Where the goal is demarcated with that dashed line in the diagram. This is not only to support the first nuclear power plant, or SMR, but also to support the expansion of the nuclear program as it matures. We're also seeing tools of innovation appear that offer new ways of work, such as machine learning, AI, advanced manufacturing, and digital twins, to say a few. So let's talk about how we can bring all of this together, or perhaps some of us already are, with our assembled panelists today. So I'm going to start off on my left. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Natalie Amasova. She graduated in Germany as a mechanical engineer and began her career in the field of nuclear power plant decommissioning. Later, moving to nuclear component supplier, initially in a sales role, followed by project management, business development, and market integration of new post-Fukushima safety systems. In 2014, Ms. Amasova was named the head of the nuclear business unit of a supplier to the nuclear power plants, where she supported the nuclear industry globally. Today, she is a principal consultant at Apollo Plus, where she heads projects for nuclear facility licensees and industry clients in the domains of regulatory compliance, nuclear safety, energy strategy, and policy. So Ms. Amasova is the member of the board of the Swiss Nuclear Workers Association, an independent consultant to the International Atomic Energy Agency, and a strategy advisor to the CTO of the Norwegian future owner-operator Norsk Kernkraft. To her left is Marcus Nickel, who joined the Nuclear Energy Institute, the NEI, in 2011, and he's the executive director of New Nuclear. In this role, he heads industry's efforts to improve the policy, regulatory, and business environment for new and advanced reactors. Marcus has previously worked for Duke Energy, Toshiba America Nuclear Energy, and TransNuclear in the areas of used nuclear fuel management, operations, and new plant projects. Marcus holds a degree in nuclear engineering from Purdue University and the University of California, Berkeley, and an MBA from the University of North Carolina. To his left, Sonia Iqbal is the program manager for the Small Modular Reactor Program at CANDU Owners Group, COG. Prior to joining COG, she held various positions at the CSA Group, CANDU Energy, and Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. Sonia has over 20 years of experience in the Canadian nuclear industry, with expertise in project management, licensing, nuclear safety, security, and safeguards. She has extensive experience with nuclear new builds and refurbishment projects. She is a member of the IAEA Technical Working Group on SMRs and the IAEA Nuclear Harmonization and Standardizations Initiative Working Group on common approaches to codes and standards for SMRs. To his left, Dr. Alexander Volgin. He's an IPMA certified project director from Rosatom Energy Projects. He has a nuclear engineering degree from the National Institute for Nuclear Science and Technology and PhD in material science from the University of Rouen, France. He has more than 14 years of nuclear background with engineering and R&D projects related to PWRs and VVER type reactors, as well as materials, rad waste, spent nuclear casks, fuel and project management with broad international experience. Throughout his career, he has worked at various levels of Rosatom and international companies such as EDF and Engie. Now he leads the projects related to the large-scale nuclear power plants, localization of equipment issues, and promotes SMRs for India. Next, Antoine Guillot is an engineer and graduate of École Polytechnique. He's the co-founder and CEO of Jimmy, which designs and operates mini nuclear reactors, SMRs, to produce and supply decarbonized heat to industrial sites. And finally, Mr. Zhu Sheng. In 2011, he graduated from the Harbin Engineering University with a master's degree in nuclear engineering, energy science and engineering. From 2011 to 2022, he worked in Shanghai Nuclear Energy Research and Design Institute engaged in nuclear power plant safety analysis, thermal hydraulic test and analysis, nuclear power plant commissioning, new reactor research and development, as well as successfully participated in the design, test, and calculation analysis of the Advanced Passive Core Cooling System Comprehensive Test Facility. The commissioning of Sandman AP1000, the research and development of Guo-1 nuclear power plant, and the development of several different small modular reactors. Since June 2022, he has been working for CNNC Nuclear Power Operations Research in Shanghai, and is mainly responsible for thermal and hydraulic analysis, as well as power uprate research for nuclear power plants. At present, he is the technical leader of the development of China Small Modular Reactor Generic User Requirements document, and he is a senior engineer. So, going forward, the format will be that each panelist will present, and once we complete all the presentations, we'll have time for questions. So with that, I'll hand it over for a short presentation for Ms. Amasova, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to present today the first talk, the first presentation of this panel. And my presentation will be about the innovative industrial involvement. At first, we were asked to say a couple of words of the organizations which we represent. So here I would like to briefly introduce you Apollo Plus. This is the organization I'm working for. It's located in Switzerland, in Zurich. And we are involved in the international SMR deployment. We work with various technology assessments. We provide investment screenings. We support nuclear law and legislation, regulation, developments, and nuclear standards, of course, touch-basing the issue of harmonization, which is very important, and which I will talk about, touch upon here as well. It also implies business development, as we cannot leave out that aspect when we talk about deployment. And after all, it's, of course, training on a wide range of nuclear subjects. So what about the SMRs when we talk about the supply chain landscape? We're working today mostly with our traditional nuclear supply chains, which are rather centralized. Many of the components and systems are being assembled in place in the nuclear power plant. The products and the companies are typically highly specialized, especially when we talk about the tier 1 suppliers, and the quantities compared to other industries are very small per project. At the same time, the vendors have to manage a zoo of various requirements, as every country has their own legislation, and sometimes it can be even different from utility to utility within one country, which leads to unique manuals for the quality assurance and quality control almost on a per project basis, so which leads for those manufacturers to some mini harmonization on their own floor to be able to supply to the global nuclear industry. So when we are looking at the SMR supply chain projections, what will we need? We will have to take into account that the assembly activities will be happening decentralized. We will have modules delivered. That means that those skills will be required somewhere at the vendor's side. The products will be more mass-produced, although, of course, mass still remains to be seen relative to the amount of SMRs which will be built, but still, it will lead to some economy of scale as more components would be manufactured in the same batch, which will be addressed to multiple SMRs. Also, what will be necessary will be to follow one set of rules and requirements to be able to do so. Otherwise, the components will have to be manufactured every time in a separate batch for a separate project, as it is the case today. And it should be also open for new players. We need new suppliers in the supply chains for SMRs, also due to the innovation. And speaking about the innovation, we have a couple of subjects which Aninda has already mentioned in his opening speech. We have the additive manufacturing, which can speed up the manufacturing processes significantly and produce parts in a single operation, so also at one facility, and at the same time be even more sustainable by reducing material waste. Smart factories using robotics, using IoT, using AI, and of course the already in many industries established Lean Six Sigma approach to ensure quality. Digital twins, who will help us to simulate the installation and the performance before it is actually in place, and by this reduce the risks of having issues and non-conformities at the site when we finally have all the components in place, also to improve design accuracy and reduce the development time significantly.
Last but not least, another popular term is blockchain, and this is for a good reason. It can be used, for example, in safeguards or for remote auditing and inspections. We had the situation a lot during Corona when the activities which were necessary for quality control could not be executed as they are usually performed on site at the vendors. So here, blockchain can be of a great help. It can help to manage the contracts and also to secure the trust in the supplier's quality assurance and quality control. But when we want to use all this, it is not just about the technology itself. It is also about the people. It is about us. It is about the licensees. It is about the staff which we have involved on all sides of the nuclear supply chain. And this means that the workforce skills must be up to date. We need trainings. We need to train the people to make them aware about all these innovations, which I was mentioning there, in order to be able to understand and to accept this. I think understanding of the technology is a key subject for us in the nuclear industry overall. This is what we would like from the population, to understand better the nuclear industry in order to have more acceptance. So same is valid for us as well. We need to understand the innovations if we want to integrate them. Also, collaboration and stakeholder alignment is important. We will need to forge cross-industry collaborations. As I mentioned, new players will come into play who will provide us these new innovative methods, who we need to integrate in our collaborative groups, and also the private and public partnerships will play a more and more significant role in order to help to align on all the policy and safety standards to smoothen the supply chain process. It involves a cultural shift towards agility and innovation. The nuclear industry often wants to execute what is safe, what is known. So this is a new frontier which we're entering here, trying something new, being innovative, being open for taking a risk of doing a new thing. This needs a change of the mindset. And also that leads to enhanced communication and transparency, which is necessary in order to build this up. And we all have our modern tools which we can use to ease the communication. There is a lot of good systems and providers to make communication faster and easier and less formal in those areas when we quickly need to clarify something. So also here, this will help us to have more transparency in our supply chain processes. Finally, this is not just a talk, but this is also becoming more and more reality, and I would like to introduce here two European initiatives which are supporting this approach. One is the European Industrial Alliance on Small Modular Reactors, which aims to facilitate and accelerate the development, the demonstration, and the deployment of small modular reactors in Europe by early 2030s. This will help to achieve the goals, and the Alliance will formulate a strategic action plan together with the technology roadmaps. I think this is a very good alliance and very good initiative to help us to practice exactly all this communication, cultural shift, forge those ideas, and come up with new joint solutions. And KELPO is another interesting initiative coming out of Norway, which is a new, more streamlined procurement practice, which allows to accept high-quality serially manufacturing items. So it opens the doors for the new players who will enter the nuclear segment, and it helps us to harmonize our requirements towards them, this approach is also being supported by the Nuclear Europe guideline on high-quality industrial-grade item procurements, which is treating exactly the same issue. How can we accept in a nuclear power plant a product which was manufactured under not nuclear quality management system? Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I want to talk to you about the industrial involvement, specifically when we talk about supply chain, both manufacturing and construction. I want to begin with the foundation of the supply chain, and it was mentioned by Maria Korsnick in the opening plenary, and that is an order book, because committed contracts to new builds is the foundation of addressing the supply chain needs. And the reason is this, is that if there are contracts for new builds, then the supply chain has the confidence it needs to make the investments, take the actions to pursue supplying those new builds. Lacking the order book, there isn't sufficient confidence, and any additional set of policies are not going to be sufficient. So I want to start with that, and with that in mind, go through a couple of other considerations. The first is that as we look at SMRs and even microreactors, the supply chain considerations are going to begin earlier in the process than we are used to for larger nuclear power projects. And the reason is that with more of the construction being moved into factories, then the on-site civil works begin to reduce in time and schedule. And so all of that manufacturing moves earlier. There's a couple of data points on this slide. The first one on the left comes from the WNA paper, and it shows that the large majority of the supply for SMRs are in equipment that are likely to come from factories. The second is a chart from a Department of Energy liftoff report released recently, and it shows the timing in which different activities need to occur. And what's really important to take away from this is that supply chain procurement involvement begins way before the final investment decision. It begins even before the applicant is submitting applications to the Nuclear Regulatory Authority for further review and approval. And so what that means is that there needs to be early engagement with the industrial complex for the supply chain and construction. And the other important thing to take away is that those investments are going to have to take place earlier, and they're going to have to take place before certain milestones are achieved, like regulatory approval, like final investment decisions. And so there's inherent risk in that as well. Another consideration, we should consider the supplier concerns. The concerns are what is going to prevent suppliers from entering into the market to provide the equipment or construction. This graphic is from a recent Idaho National Laboratory report that did a survey of suppliers and identified specifically their concerns. There's a number on here, but they fall within 4 general categories. The first is in the workforce, the human capital and resource development. The second is in the physical ability to supply these components, whether that's to be able to do it at quality or to be able to do it at scale or size. The third area is in business, business case considerations. Is there sufficient prospects for payback? Is the market large enough? And then the fourth is related to external conditions that result in risks to that business case. Is there a future for nuclear energy? What about competition? This could be competition of other suppliers in other countries, or it could be competition for the same supply chain resources from a large number of projects, nuclear projects, or even from other industries. As we look at considerations for the localization of the supply chain, there are a number of things to consider. These also fall within a number of categories. The first consideration is what the country's long-term plans are for the scale of nuclear power plant deployments. If it is a large build program, there is much more incentive for more localization of the supply chain. If it is a very small program, then it's much harder to make the financial justification of investment into the localization of the supply chain. Similarly, the supply chain is not a monolith. There are multiple different pieces of the supply chain. Some are more easily localized than others. Certainly things that are of high volume, that are more locally sourced or manufactured to local codes and standards, or need more local labor invested in them. Those are easier to localize. Harder to localize are the one-off components that you build very few of them, that they have to be built to high nuclear industry standards and capabilities. Those require much more investment, have much higher barriers of entry and competition internationally. And so all of those need to be considered. And finally, as a country is looking at the localization, they need to understand the current state of the industrial base and their capabilities, what they could supply today, both in terms of workforce and physical capabilities, and then put together in that, knowing that it's a long-term, the nuclear power plants operate for the long term, that they can put into a longer range plan. What do they want to localize today? What might they be able to localize over a number of years as they make investments in upgrading their capabilities? The U.S. nuclear industry has a long history of helping other countries localize supply chain, help to develop their local infrastructure and capabilities so that they can be part of the nuclear industry for the long term. Finally, I want to talk about construction. And we know that a lot of the discussion around construction experience focuses on cost overruns and schedule delays, and largely because those are scary and undesirable things. But we also know that there is experience around the world in building on time and on budget. And as we consider, well, what makes the difference between an on-time, on-budget project and an overrun project, we find that the ones that are built on time and on budget share the characteristic that it has been a result of a committed, sustained, large build program of a standardized design. And so we're seeing those factors emerge today for SMRs. The large-scale demand for SMRs is creating the confidence that there will be a sustained build in multiple countries, and then focused on design standardization, that we know that will also be of importance. One of the things NEI has put together, construction best practices, learning from good projects and not so well run projects. What we found is that most of those were known, but what people didn't know is how to implement them. And so we put together a bunch of guidance to help implement those. So I'll leave you with this. We will have these in the slides that will be available after the conference, but you can download. These are the executive summaries available to everybody, and then we have member-only versions of the full reports as well. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking Aninda and the agency for the opportunity to participate in this plenary session. So today I'll be talking about innovative industrial involvement in Canada, specifically in industry collaboration, government support, and new approaches. So I'll start with a brief introduction about my organization, Can-Do Owners Group. We are a private, nonprofit corporation funded voluntarily by members and supplier and program participants in 6 countries worldwide to achieve excellence through collaboration in CANDU and advanced reactor technologies to meet the world's goals for clean, abundant energy. In summary, we're a collaboration hub supporting the Canadian nuclear industry. Established in 1984, COG facilitates research, joint projects, information exchange, learning and development, and industry collaboration in the areas of nuclear safety and environmental affairs. Through its collaboration model, COG has been supporting the Canadian industry, and actually worldwide CANDU industry, achieve excellence for the last 40 years. And this is just a slide showing our members. You'll notice that they're all CANDU owners, as well as the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. So I'll set the stage by talking about the Canadian nuclear landscape. Canada has committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and within the electricity sector by 2035. More recently, at COP28, Canada was one of the signatories of the declaration to triple nuclear energy by 2050. This pledge translates to approximately 24 gigawatts electric of increased capacity from 2020. SMRs are expected to play an important role in meeting Canada's decarbonization goals. Between 1971 and 1992, we deployed 22 new reactors in Canada. Building upon the lessons learned from these projects and basically all the nuclear work we've done since then, including refurbishment projects, as well as industry collaboration, we can do it again and we can do it better. However, innovative industrial involvement will be the key. Okay, the first example of innovative industrial involvement, which is credited for kickstarting the serious discussion about SMRs in Canada, was the publication of the SMR Roadmap in 2017. This was a landmark effort unlike any others the sector had ever undertaken. The roadmap brought together the federal government, provinces, territories, utilities, and enabling partners to chart a vision for the development and deployment of SMRs. The roadmap established a Team Canada approach for SMRs, identifying the actions needed to realize the promise of SMRs in Canada. In 2018, Team Canada was reconvened to document a plan for the development and demonstration and deployment of SMRs for multiple applications at home and abroad in the SMR Action Plan. In response to one of the actions raised in the SMR Action Plan, in 2018, COG's mandate was expanded to include advanced reactor technologies. As a result, we established our SMR program. The program brings together key stakeholders from within the industry to identify and collaborate on high priority areas to support the successful development and deployment of SMRs in Canada. And I've listed some of the topics that we've worked on in the past and are continuing to work on. Additionally, we're facilitating a number of joint projects focusing on regulatory efficiencies, SMR training and certification, as well as workforce and talent development. We also, as we move ahead with SMR projects, industry associations such as the Canadian Nuclear Association and Organization of Canadian Nuclear Industries are supporting industry collaboration in various ways. For example, the Canadian Nuclear Association is working on lobbying efforts both within Canada and internationally. They've also convened a number of joint energy forums with the UK and the US and have a number of workforce planning initiatives underway, including a job study and workforce projections. The Organization of Canadian Nuclear Industries established an SMR Ready for SMR program, both a national program and regional programs in Atlantic Canada and Saskatchewan. This particular program promotes a pan-Canadian supply chain, advanced manufacturing, SMR workforce development, and Indigenous engagement. The Canadian nuclear landscape has changed drastically since our initial deployments of CANDU reactors. It is recognized for that projects to succeed in the current landscape, they need to be private sector-led, but government-enabled through funding and policy. So we'll note on this slide a number of recent initiatives from the Canadian government. The Canadian government in the last few years has really come to the table and indicated their strong support for nuclear technology, including confirming nuclear as a clean energy source and also updating the investment tax credits criteria to include nuclear. They also continue to have discussions with other governments around the world on key issues related to SMR development and deployment. They've also provided more recently federal funding for new reactor projects and university research. I will point out they invested a significant amount of money into the Darlington New Nuclear Project, as well as providing funding to SMR vendors to develop their designs. They've also provided funding to the regulator to support regulatory efficiencies and have established an enabling SMR program in which they provide funding to support the development of the supply chain for SMR manufacturing and fuel, as well as research on SMR waste management solutions. Finally, I'd like to talk about new approaches with respect to innovative industrial involvement. As we move forward with the development of SMR projects in Canada, we're leveraging lessons learned from recent refurbishment projects, specifically with respect to innovative contracting. For this reason, we are seeing strategic partnerships being formed to ensure alignment amongst all key stakeholders in an effort to ensure projects are completed on time and on budget. This model has been applied in the integrated project delivery model that is being used for the Darlington New Nuclear Project. As the nuclear landscape changes with the entry of new end users, going forward, we expect that strategic partnerships will play a key role in new nuclear projects. Advanced manufacturing and construction methods will also be instrumental in ensuring the cost effectiveness of SMRs. These methods are expected to enhance quality, reduce cost and deployment timelines, and reduce waste. For the Darlington New Nuclear Project, they are expecting to use advanced construction methods, specifically the use of steel composite construction technologies like steel bricks, factory assembly of the turbine and generator, as well as using proven construction methods that have been previously used in the water and tunneling industry. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Volgin. I'm coming from Rosatom Energy Projects, and I'm responsible for the development of SMRs. Closer, yeah, okay, sorry. In Southeast and South Asia region. So progress and innovation are driven by rethinking of well-established approaches. Bigger is better approach is not always up to date. Can I have the presentation, please? Oh, yeah, thanks. So all this week, experts from all the domains discussed about the advantages of SMR, of handling them, and how to make them real. So typically the challenges that are laying in front of the SMRs are quite high. So lowering construction risk, shortening construction time, lower absolute capital cost, and other parameters. So coming closer to the customer is well interesting as well, because one of the purposes of SMRs is replace the thermal power plants, the captive ones. So the goals are high, the expectations also. So how to reach these goals? By making these SMRs economically viable. Let's look at second generation of large-scale NPPs. And for example, the French nuclear program, which was a success with 900 megawatt reactors. But since then, additional safety and security measures came along with increasing the cost of these large-scale NPPs. And due to changing market conditions, the governments of customer countries need to play an active role to promote this SMR and make them viable and competitive. Government, as a main beneficiary, has the opportunity to create favorable conditions for the deployment of SMR program. For example, from my experience and that I'm expecting in the regions where I'm working in, I have observed such a picture when the government requires a major and economically competitive technology. The vendors expect the certainty and clear request from the governments to develop their own program, and the suppliers, the local one, expect a guaranteed order and reasonable volume of deliveries, because otherwise they will not invest in the developments. So what is typically the recipe of economically viable projects? Engagements and a clear vision. So having all these ingredients that I have stated on this presentation, so the major SMR technology, clear state engagements, selected sites and other parameters will make this SMR project portfolio viable. So as in the beginning of the nuclear era, we will have some pilot projects that will be the ground and the basis for the innovative approach for successful SMR deployment. Typically, we are always speaking about standardization of equipment design, requirements, etc. So it will be based on the pilot project. And the local suppliers will be developed on the basis of the pilot projects. So let's have a look on the definition. I will cite it from the IAA documents on what is a supply chain. Supply chain delivers services throughout the design phases, pre-construction, manufacture, construction, and startup phases, or supply materials, manufacture components, fuel supply, and fuel services. And innovation is this practical implementation of ideas, introduction of new goods, or improvement of services. So when you start from scratch, it's a little bit difficult to be innovative because regulatory bodies like something which is proven. So what has done Rosatom within the domain of the SMRs? So first of all, we are providing the integrated comprehensive offer, which is centralized on the energy solution, which is the SMR, and provide the scope of services which are surrounding this NPP. Typically, the core of the integrated offer is based on the written 200 reactor, which is innovative by design, avoiding several accidents. And this is quite interesting for the new project because it will allow to reduce the costs. Apart from the energy solution itself, the integrated offer covers all issues regarding the effective project development, nuclear infrastructure, human resource development, fuel supply, services, and so on. So let's jump in this integrated offer to see some new approaches. First of all, the numerical approach. It's the basis of everything. Nowadays, we are getting more and more numerical. So we have a special tool, which is called Multi-D. It's a set of software designed to optimize the operation in managing complex projects, which SMR are. Multi-D products help to increase efficiency, reduce cost, and increase the transparency of all the stages. But to having such tools, advanced tools, we need the staff. Human are driving the innovation. That's why the staffing of all this supply chain is quite important, and it's missed in the basic definition of the supply chain. But everything turns around human. Finally, Rosatom provides comprehensive support for the NPP customer and NPP customer countries to developing and implementing training programs. For example, I can cite that we are opening the universities which are working with Rosatom are opening branches in the countries, which is quite interesting because we can allow to form the personnel, the engineers, the researchers, which will work on these SMRs in the future. Another important point is the fuel design and supply. Rosatom is a strong and innovative company which provides high quality standards fuel and has a big experience worldwide. I can cite specific example of the innovations that has been integrated in the SMRs based on the Return 200 series. First of all, this reactor can operate up to 10 years, and it's quite interesting but tough for the fuel. Thus, to increase the safety, enhance properties, and ease the management of this fuel, the standard uranium oxide matrix has been replaced by silicon matrix with dispersed uranium oxide within. And enrichment of such fuel reaches 19.5% that allows longer fuel cycles. And at least, but not the last, even so, Rosatom has all in-house capacities. Rosatom is interested in the involvement of local suppliers in the nuclear project development to ensure its efficiency. For example, the scope of supply depends upon the efficiency and the development of the local industries. I can cite a specific example of the Uzbekistan projects which we have started recently. And it stated that supply of a part of equipment and materials from the Republic of Uzbekistan and coordination of work regarding the localization of production will be done in Uzbekistan as well. It's a good start for such project. So coming to the end of my speech, all elements of the supply chain exist already in Rosatom for the SMR development program. Rosatom has all the necessary competencies for the establishment of full supply chain and deployments and is ready to provide the expertise abroad in the countries where the program is ambitious and huge. Thank you so much.
So, hello everyone. So, thank you for this kind invitation, Aline. I'm very glad to be in front of you. So, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Jimmy. Jimmy is a French startup, and we are designing and we want to soon operate a small nuclear reactors in order to provide process heat to industrials. What I'll try to do this morning is to share with you some of the organization features that we have put into place in order to bring manufacturing as soon as we design the reactor in order to anticipate how we will build such a device at the end. So first, what is our mission? Our mission is to supply low carbon industrial heat at a lower cost than gas. That's the goal because uranium is quite cheap per megawatt per hour. And so if we are good enough, and if we do some low-tech and simple reactor, maybe we could get to such a low price. So that's the goal. And in front of us, we have manufacturers that have to change the heat source because today they are in a situation that anymore. For example, so fossil heat accounts for nearly 75% of industrial heat consumption. Industrials face volatile and rising gas costs, and there are a very ecological pressure that you all know. When you look at the conventional alternatives, you see that electricity is about 3 times more expensive than gas in Europe. Clean hydrogen is then 4 times more expensive than gas since it is based on electricity, and yield is not about 1. Carbon capture is not mature and maintain the grip on fossil fuels. And at the end, biomass, which is the use of vegetables or things like that, is expensive and operationally complicated. So based on that, we design a small HTR reactor that is a 20 megawatt of power, and we want to put it next to industrial site. The goal today for us is to start the reactor in 2027, and today we are currently under instruction of the French Nuclear Safety Authority that is licensing or is looking at the file we have for a sugar factory that is next to Reims in France. So we are undergoing this kind of instruction. And the goal is now to have everything ready to start the construction, to start building in 2026. So it is a short time, you will say, but at the same time, the device is quite small. It could nearly fit in this room. And also, we have all a strategy about manufacturing that I want to share with you today. When I've been asked what can we do for the manufacturing design, so I think that we have 4 points that we could share together. The first one is that the first thing you do when you're an engineer, you want to design something, is to call suppliers, because they know way more about what you are going to design than you do. The second thing is when we design a system, you optimize it in order to be sure that you have methods for industrial manufacturing tomorrow, because otherwise you will have a cost that is higher than gas. There is a thing about how do you finance, you as a nuclear design operator, where do you finance the tools that the manufacturer and the supplier will have to use in order to get to serial manufacturing? And at the end, what do you see? How do we anticipate, based on manufacturing methods, the next phases or the next innovations in a reactor? I'll try to go fast, but the third thing we do is we have developed our own PLM using codes like Python and other type of codes. And from that point, we have made an organization that is able to first call suppliers, have all the manufacturing capabilities in our mind in order to design something that can be made quickly. So if I give you an example, the roadmap I showed you would not have been possible if I just used the traditional valves, because it takes 3 years to be built, because it is based on forged metallic components that are quite hard to get. So we get rid of these valves, and the functions that was on these valves were buttoned on other systems. We did this because we anticipated the manufacturing and we put it in our design. That's something that we do for a lot of everything in the reactor. That's the same also for materials, because you want to be sure that you have the possibilities to have some qualified component at the end with data on your materials behavior. The second thing that is very key for us as a small modular reactor designer is to say, okay, if I want to be sure that I will have good cost and I will have a know-how and I will be able to build on it, I have to design things that can be made through serial manufacturing system. That means that automatic operation, assembly lines, standard trucks, and industrial standards. And to give you an example, I talk about the valves for the first point. For the control rod mechanism that we have, we made it all identical. So in our reactor, it's not one mechanism, it's several identical mechanisms. And in it, everything is qualified around all nuclear codes from France when it's necessary. And we also decrease specification and requirements of this control rod mechanism in order to open it to larger suppliers. So there's a really work on the design, not only about performances of the reactor, but how to manage it in order to fit the supplier area or the manufacturing availability. If I go on the third part, which is more something that is currently under design, but I think it's interesting because historically, nuclear industry is quite of a craftsman industry. So everything is made on purpose with very special tools. You don't have this optimization of how can I do multiple times the same thing. And if someone or a supplier needs to change from, okay, I go to the craftsman to I am an industrial, it's not something he can do like that. He has to invest, he has to think about the tools he wants to do. And so as a nuclear reactor designer, you have to anticipate two things. First, that the piece you want to do with the supplier is not hard to automatize, otherwise you won't invest in it. And the second point is, once I want my supplier to invest in it, I have to give him visibility so that he can come to me and then make the bet of the small modular reactor. Otherwise, it's just a fancy dream and you won't be able to get it on the road with you. And the 4 points I wanted to share with you is that when we look at the way we want to improve the design, in a way you can say there are two ways of thinking about it. The first one is, okay, I have a research and development team. That means people that will think about new physical law or things that I will be able to use tomorrow, but that are very hard to develop. Or, and that's more on a topic, we think that to bring innovation, we have to start from manufacturing. That means bring something that is already existing in order to put it in the nuclear field, which is already some work to do, and then be able to improve because you can do things better. Also, since the beginning of Jimmy, we have been always surprised and delighted to see that most of the suppliers had great ideas, and it is by speaking with the manufacturing line that we get the best ideas. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. For the very last minutes before the noon, I'm from China, CNC. I will give you a brief introduction of the introduction for the small modular reactors in China. First, I want to give you a brief introduction of our cooperation. You know, CNC is the most important nuclear power company in China, and till now we have more than 25 units in operation now. I mean the large nuclear power plant. And I come from the Nuclear Power Operation Research Institute, which is located in Shanghai. And our institute is founded in September in 2019. So as a main research institute of the CNP, we mainly focus on the research of plant engineering and equipment reliability and nuclear safety and digital innovation and performance improvement and so on. So in these slides, I will show you some SMRs in different development phases in China. In the table, you can see there are 10 types of SMRs. Among them, the first, I want to see the ACP100. I'm sure that some one of you have visited our exhibition platform, and you can see that our ACP100 is under construction in Hainan province, and we plan to complete the construction by the end of the 2026. And the next SMR is the HTRPM, which is located in Shandong province, and this HTRPM has already get the commercial operation in 2023. And another one is the ACPR50S. It's a floating reactor. Now this SMR is in a digital design phase. And next, I want to show the supply chain of China SMRs, not only for the SMRs, but also for the whole nuclear power industry. There are 6 aspects in our nuclear industry supply chain, including the nuclear material field, research and development institutes, and component manufacturing, and construction, and operation and maintenance, and the last one is the education and training. Actually, the nuclear power industry supply chain is not established specifically for the SMR. And we have more than 40 years in the utility of the nuclear power in China. And during this process of the nuclear power use in China, we have developed several different kinds of nuclear power plants. There are 2 typical large nuclear power plants in China I want to mention. The first one is the HPR-1000. It's also called Hualong 1. And this first unit of Hualong 1 nuclear power plant has been in operation since 2021. And another one is the CP400, 1400. We also call it Guohe 1. It's another typical nuclear power plant developed by China. And this, the Guohe 1 design also has completed in 2020. And during the development process of such large nuclear power plant, we established a full supply chain for the nuclear industry. And all the relevant members in the supply chain of the large nuclear power plants can also have the ability to provide support for the development and application of the SMRs in China. And in these slides, I want to show you some specific companies belongs to different aspects in the supply chain. And the first, the nuclear material field, we have the North Nuclear Fuel Component Company and the Lanzhou Uranium Enrichment Company, and so on. And for the research and design of the nuclear power plants and SMRs, we have China Institute of Atom Energy, the Nuclear Power Institute of China, and the Shanghai Nuclear Engineering Research and Design Institute, and some other institutes and companies. And for the component manufacturing, we have Harbin Electric Company and Dongfang Electric Company and Shanghai Electric Company. Such companies can supply the manufacturing capability for the steam generator and the turbine and the turbines. And the fourth is the construction. We also have different companies. They have the capability to fulfill all the requirements for the construction of nuclear power plants and SMRs. And you can see that there are more than 3 companies in different supply chain aspects. That means we have a reliable and sustainable capability for the construction, for the design, for the maintenance, and also for the other requirements in the nuclear power plants, and also included the SMRs. And the final I want to mention is that we have enough sufficient education and training capabilities in the nuclear power industry. By now, we have more than 10 universities have the nuclear power-related majors. They can provide hundreds of highly educated nuclear energy professionals for the various areas in the nuclear energy supply chain. That will give us big support to develop the nuclear power technology. Also, it can give us big support for the SMR development and application in China. Besides what I mentioned before, we also adopt some innovative technologies in our development of SMRs and also in the nuclear power plant industry. For example, we use the AI technology and to help the operators to identify the leakages, the vibrations, and some other risks. And we also use the robots to help the workers to make sure that some places is very dangerous. We can help the workers to solve some of the problems. And we have also get some achievement in the using of the innovative technologies and have brought some profit and make a great effort to use more and more innovation technologies in the future. I'm sure that the innovative technologies will give more help helpful for our development of the nuclear power technologies, including the SMRs. And finally, I want to give some summary of the presentation. And from this presentation, you can absolutely know that in China we have a sufficient and a complete supply chain for the nuclear power energy, including the SMR development and the construction and application in different areas. So, if someone wants SMRs for your country or for your requirement in different areas, we can get together and work together for the plan, and we can give enough and sufficient support for the location of the capability in for the customers in the future, and welcome all the partners come to China and visit our SMRs in Shandong and Hainan. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you to the panelists. So now I'm going to slip in one question for myself, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. So if you could start being ready to identify yourself to ask a question, I'm going to ask you to use your microphone, say your name, your organization, and the country that you come from. But for me, I'd like to ask the question to our panelists. How do we show potential industry participants that the SMR project is ready to take their innovative solutions, like the use of artificial intelligence or advanced manufacturing or even digital twins, and show that then these technologies are already deployed in other energy industries? So how can we show the industry that we're ready to use these technologies? Maybe I'll start off with Natalia. Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to answer this question. I think we started as simple as with the dialogue. It always needs first some communication, some introduction of each other, that we have some common events where, as much as we will learn about those providers, we also introduce ourselves to them and say some words about what makes us unique so that they understand what kind of customer profile they will be dealing with when they will support us in the nuclear industry.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else, please?
So I would agree with what Natalia just said, and I'll note that recently in Canada we hosted the Generation 4 and Small Reactor Conference in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of discussion about AI. And for someone who initially going into this conference didn't know a lot about AI, I was actually surprised to learn that it is being used in limited capacities in some of the reactors, and there are prospects to use it in SMRs, and people believe that it will actually make SMR deployment more easier and successful. So I think it's a lot about the industry. The industry traditionally has been slow to innovate, so we do definitely need to educate the industry, but also the public. And I think the regulators are also doing a good job. The CNSC, the UK ONR, and the US NRC recently published a report about considerations, things to take into consideration when looking at implementing AI in nuclear reactors. So I think that's a good first step to start those discussions and get people thinking about AI implementation.
Yeah, I'll also add, I think it depends on whether it's a safety-related component or whether it's a commercial-grade component. If it's a commercial-grade component, these technologies are being used already. But where it comes in for safety-related, that's where the regulatory authority is going to have to approve the application and uses of those technologies. And so that's going to be key, the regulators' indication and acceptance of those technologies. We're just beginning down that road. One of the key pieces of the solution for accelerated adoption is to utilize codes and standards that already exist for these technologies and apply them for nuclear applications.
Thank you. So maybe I'll turn it over to the audience. Is there any questions? Please.
Thank you very much, Kamam Rabit Morocco. Well, let me start by thanking the presenters for their excellent contributions. And I take this opportunity, this is the last day, and I'm near 2 DDGs here from the IAEA. I would like really to sincerely thank them. DDG, the head of the Department of Nuclear Energy, and DDG, head of the Nuclear Safety and Security Department. This event was really great. We learned a lot about regulatory preparedness, we learned about capacity building, industry involvement, and many other issues. And we shared a lot of information and good practices. This is fantastic, but we are here only 1,000 to 1,300 people. There are many, many key stakeholders in the member states that are not aware or not fully aware of these efforts that the IAEA is doing. So I think it will be really good to put more emphasis for the future on communication and stakeholder involvement, and really touch those that might also need to be aware of the importance of SMRs and also the net zero by 2050. We cannot achieve that if we continue only like this. It will take a lot of time. But if we put more efforts on those countries really interested or embarking or expanding nuclear power, and really somehow convince those decision makers, including parliamentarians and others in each country, doing this at the sub-regional level or regional level, it will be great. Of course, this is easy to say. To achieve that, you need more resources, financial and human. And I think what I really would suggest is that to think of those countries interested in nuclear power from the vendor countries or embarking countries, to think of the creation of an extra budgetary SMR fund, to promote that, so that the IAEA has more, possibilities and opportunities to do, this sensitization and communication. So I think this will be great. What you need, all of us, is to convince some countries, key member states. Next board is November, and then to start promoting and considering this idea of creating these extra budgetary SMR funds. So some might find this a crazy idea, but I think, when you think of it deeply, it might work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment. Is there any other questions? Please.
Thank you, and thank you for the very nice presentations. My name is José Bastos. I'm a private consultant now. And I think all the presentations were very interesting, but all of them were from the developer's perspective. And I just would like to hear a few words about the recipients of SMR's perspective. For example, many countries justifies their nuclear power program, and in particular SMRs now, by the fact that can create local possibilities for the industry. So my question is, compared to large NPPs, do you see the same level of participation for local industries, or do you see a more limited possibilities because of standardization and other factors?
Would anyone like to try to answer that question, please?
I think there is increased possibilities or greater possibilities. When I look at Canada, for instance, traditionally we've been can-do country. There are large nuclear power plants, and there aren't very many of them. So the supply chain, for the most part, has been centralized around the province of Ontario, where most of the can-do reactors are. But as we're looking to deploy reactors throughout Canada and in other regions that don't currently have a nuclear program, in order to achieve the economies of scale, we really do need to develop local supply chains. And for that reason, we're actually looking to develop supply chains in regions beyond Ontario.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I think one of the opportunities is the fact that for the increased safety for SMRs, that's going to allow more commercial grade components, which is easier to localize. With greater factory production, then there's a natural tendency to try to utilize existing factories, which might make it more difficult to localize. I think that the demand and the volume of SMRs is going to have a huge influence over that. And one of the conversations I see happening is that there's this concept of regionalization. So it may not be that a country domesticates or localizes a whole part of the supply chain, but they may do it a little bit within that region and other countries within the region, and so there could be some collaboration within regions.
Yes, thank you. I guess it can even be increased because, for example, a basic option for the V200 SMR is that it's transported to the full assembly to the construction site, and all the remaining parts can be erected and provided locally.
On my perspective, what I think about the market when I talk to industrials is that one of the big problems of the nuclear industry is the decision process and the organization around it. So if you have to do a project with both an industrial site and a nuclear site at the same time, I think you can't start by that. What we see from the industrial perspective is that we have to go on an industrial site that already exists, because they know they are quite well, they know how to make their industrial site live, and then come with a solution that is a nuclear-based solution to replace the gas use. But when we come to replace the gas use, in fact, we don't replace everything. What I understand from the industrials today is that they don't want to change everything they have for a nuclear thing. They want to put nuclear in the mix in order to be sure that they have reliability, they can product and they can change the source of energy according to the price, because everything we're talking, and it's also from the previous remark, the main point is first the market. Is there will for that? And today what I think for the France is that we have enough nuclear plants, so we don't need more anymore. So that could be a way of thinking the way nuclear industry is developing in France. And also, what is the price? And both of these points are easier to manage when you only come with a small thing that is on an already existing industrial site.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to close the questions now, in respect of time. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone and the panelists for your presentations today. And now, maybe we can give them a round of applause. So I'm going to ask everyone to stay in their seats. We're going to move straight into the closing session now. Thank you very much.
I've been here before. It ain't gonna work no more. Oh no 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 more. I've been here before. It ain't gonna work no more. No no more. I've been here before. It ain't gonna work no more. I've been here before. It ain't gonna work no more. I've been here before.
AEA.
That is finished almost.
Yes. Right. I go? Sorry?
Dear participants, dear colleagues, welcome to the closing session of the International Atomic Energy Agency first international conference on small modular reactors and their applications. As you know by now, I am Aline Descloiseaux, Director of the Division of the Nuclear Power here at the IAEA, and I am the co-scientific secretary of this conference, along with Anna Bradford, Director of the Division of Nuclear Installation Safety. We were very pleased to have you here all week, and we hope that you have found the program and the exchanges both informative and useful. The closing session is the opportunity to summarize the main takeaways of the conference that you will all bring home and be able to share with your colleagues. We have had a very busy week, so let's get started. First, with conference statistics presented by my colleague Anna. Anna, please, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to take a few minutes to share with you some of the statistics from the conference. As you can imagine, we track some of this data very carefully so we can understand the interest of our stakeholders and plan for the future. So when we first started planning this conference about 18 months ago, we estimated that probably 600 to 700 people would attend, and we planned accordingly in terms of reserving the meeting rooms here in the Vic. Instead, we had approximately 1,300 people attend. So now you can understand why some of our conference rooms were very crowded this week, and we appreciate your understanding about that. We also had over 1,100 people joining us online so that they could follow along virtually. This comprised 95 member states and 17 international organizations. And you can see here on this slide the 10 countries that had the highest number of registrants, as well as the global distribution of participants. We also note that, interestingly, if we look at the age of the participants, the largest group is made up of attendees between the ages of 30 and 40, and essentially 60% of the total attendees are between 30 and 50 years old. In terms of gender, women made up only 25% of the participants, so we all have some work to do there. This slide shows details about the tracks and the technical sessions. The topical group that had the most papers was Group A, which was SMR design, technology, fuel cycle, and applications, followed by Group D, which was considerations to facilitate deployment of SMRs. Along with our 5 plenary sessions and 5 side events, we held 44 individual technical sessions and almost 100 poster presentations. Combined, we had a total of approximately 350 presenters. You can see here the countries that submitted the largest number of papers, with the 5 highest being the United States, France, the Republic of Korea, the Russian Federation, and Canada. In terms of regional distribution, the highest number of accepted papers came from Europe, followed by the Americas and Asia. Marco Riccati will go into much more detail about the technical sessions and their outcomes. Please note that if you would like to go back and look again at something you heard this week, or perhaps something you missed, all of the presentations and the corresponding papers will be available through the conference app in the coming days. In addition, video recordings of the sessions are also being uploaded on the app, and videos of the sessions in the plenary room, this room, are already available on the IEA website. You will also see that the conference app has a survey where you can tell us how we did, what went well, and what we can do to improve for the next conference. I encourage you to fill this out as your feedback is important to us. Thank you for your attention, and I now turn it back to Aline.
Thank you, Anna, for this presentation with very impressive numbers. I would like now to welcome to the podium Mrs. Maria Korsnik, the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Nuclear Energy Institute, who kindly accepted to serve as the conference president. Dear Maria, your opening keynote speech and at different occasions all over the week were all very relevant and thoughtful for the audience. Maria, please, you have the floor for your closing remarks.
Well, it has been a real honor to serve as the president of this conference for the very first IAEA SMR conference, and I'm so very grateful to be asked to offer me this opportunity. It's really been a remarkable 5 days. You heard some of the statistics here. I want to especially thank Director General Grossi, Anna Bradford, Alina de Cloizeau, and the rest of the IAEA team for the vision and the hard work that went into creating this magnificent event. A special thanks to Conference Chair Professor Riccati for his leadership of the many sessions that took place. Many thanks to all of the presenters, the panelists, the moderators, who provided valuable insights and inspired learning and exchange of ideas. And finally, my thanks to all of you, the hundreds of you who dedicated your time, offered your perspectives, and were actively engaged. It's overwhelming, but not at all surprising, to see this type of interest and interaction from the global community. With so much rich content over the course of this week, it's actually difficult to summarize into just a few key takeaways, but with the help of the IAEA staff, I do want to share some perspectives of some of the events this week. On Monday, we had an opening plenary session with Director General Grossi and a very diverse panel. This distinguished group of executives discussed the overarching issues that will affect the deployment of SMRs, including emerging demands for power, innovative designs, and regulatory approaches. The strategic outlook from this panel truly set the tone for the rest of the week. We also had an end users panel, and that later that afternoon, and it had a few interesting outcomes. Besides tech companies looking to SMRs to power AI and data centers, SMRs are really emerging as a key potential option to help decarbonize the steel industry, to provide heating for cities through district heating, to decarbonize other hard-to-abate sectors and industries like chemicals and petrochemicals. Also for marine applications, including transportable nuclear power plants and naval propulsion, and for helping to produce low-carbon aviation fuel. Stakeholders in all of these industries discussed the status of their thinking for actual projects. So SMRs for the steel, chemical, aviation industries and district heating, they were more near to medium term, where SMRs for the marine application appear to have a little of a longer term horizon, perhaps in the 2040s. On Tuesday, I was honored to participate in the Women in Nuclear side event. The panel discussed how women still represent only 1/4 of the nuclear workforce today, which, as we just saw from Anna, corresponds to the women's participation in this conference as well. The purpose of this event was to discuss how SMR's arrival into the energy market could be a game changer for women, because SMRs offer a wonderful opportunity to help close the gender gap, both in public perception and acceptance of nuclear, as well as the attractiveness of nuclear careers. It is worthy of noting that nuclear energy success requires the efforts of men and women working together. On Wednesday evening, we had a young event titled SMRs and Microreactors Towards a Sustainable and Equitable Future. The multi-generational, multidisciplinary panel discussed the opportunities and challenges posed by SMRs and microreactors. And just a few highlights. To build ownership in decision-making, it's necessary to create spaces for inclusive discussion, including generational perspectives. And we should holistically consider the technical, social, and financial aspects rather than just discussing and pursuing from a singular solution perspective. And workforce development is an incredibly important consideration in the deployment of SMRs. Capacity building for safety, security, and safeguards requires international, local, and non-traditional partner support. The simple fact that this conference is taking place and over 1,000 people from around the world are here proves that the demand for nuclear energy globally is reaching a place of necessity and enthusiasm that we have not seen, perhaps ever. Governments are leaning in with pledges to triple nuclear by the 2050s. And last month, some of the world's largest financial institutions endorsed a pledge and committed to support it. Big tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google are also getting into nuclear. So projects are underway, and regulatory agencies are reviewing construction permits and licenses. This conference was specifically focused on small modular reactors, which will play a critical role in our clean energy future. But we need to recognize that the demand for clean, firm, and dispatchable energy will require really a host of nuclear technologies, all makes and models, to meet not only the growing demand, but also global climate and security goals. This resurgence that we're seeing and driving is based on demand. Demand from governments, demand from utilities, demand from industrial companies, and demand from local communities. In fact, in the United States, we now have examples that we have moved past not in my backyard to please in my backyard. We're not looking to triple nuclear generation worldwide just to create more electrons. We're looking to triple nuclear generation to solve real problems. We learned a lot this week about the important role that SMRs will play in the clean energy future. We also need large reactors to meet the growing demand. And for big things like AI and advanced computing, and they will be able to partner in the energy mix, integrating the larger shares of renewable energy. Countries need large reactors to help replace fossil fuel dependence. And some customers will need very small reactors or microreactors to power, let's say, mining enterprises and things in remote rural locations. We are an industry of innovation and an industry of solutions. We should be proud of the role that we will play in decarbonizing entire industries and economies. We have surpassed the tipping point. Now it is up to us to meet this demand with current technology and new designs well on their way to deployment. Once again, thank you for contributing to this conversation. Your perspectives and voices are important as we rise together to meet this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for these very inspiring words. So let's turn now to Professor Dr. Marco Ricotti, chair of the conference. Marco was instrumental in this week's success. He started working with us more than 1 year ago as the chair of the program committee, gathering 19 experts from 13 member states. And together with our internal expert, they have defined the technical program, the tracks, they have reviewed all abstracts and papers, and they have organized the technical sessions with the chairs and the co-chairs. So, Marco, can you please tell us now more about the main takeaways of those 44 sessions?
Thank you, Aline. Yes, let us summarize. We don't want we don't pretend to summarize all the results in a few slides, but we will try to highlight the main outcomes. With your presentations, with your lively discussion reached during those 5 days. Exciting days. You participated in several of the tracks, divided in 4 topical groups, in a total of 17 tracks. Let us summarize some results. Starting from the first group, the topical group A, devoted to SMR design, technology, and fuel cycle. We highlighted the fact that there are diverse innovative approaches during the development of the SMRs to address safety, reliability, flexibility, but even economic issues for nuclear energy. SMRs could play an essential role in the near future energy markets, also because they can integrate non-electric applications and also renewable energy sources. There was attention also to transportable SMRs, to floating SMRs, and also to nuclear propeller ships. This could be really an efficient way to meet the increasing energy demands from different member states, and also to help in solving the issue of the international shipping sector to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emission targets. The fuel cycle is very important, can enable the SMR technologies to be deployed, as well as the back end of the SMR fuel cycle has to be considered since the beginning, during the stage of design and planning. Focus was also devoted to simplifying the reactor design, for example, to reduce the footprint, reduce the weight, to foster the safety system innovation, and this is helping the scalability and the economic viability for both the electrical application and the industrial applications. The focus was also devoted to standardized codification processes, for example, for the steel concrete structure, for the SMR construction. Yes, the cost is a key, for sure, but we have to remember that for certain markets that will open, that are opening to nuclear, to SMR in particular, for example, for the mining industry, for the data centers, and artificial intelligence, they could absorb higher energy costs. The supply chain for small modular reactors needs to be based on possibly standard solutions, including products and services, in order to enable the series production. We have to strengthen the international collaboration among the different stakeholders, meaning the regulators, the technology developers, the nuclear component manufacturing side, because we have to try to create standardized qualification schemes in order to streamline the deployment of SMRs. There was a strong encouragement for the agency and the International Maritime Organization to collaborate for finding solutions for the maritime application of nuclear reactor technology. And also, we need to achieve competitiveness for delivering projects on budget and on time. I would say that this could be a very synthetic sentence. It was also mentioned by DG Grossi during his introductory speech. So the target is to deliver projects on budget and on time. About the topical group B, legislative and regulatory frameworks, we have to establish and maintain an adequate national legal framework. This is fundamental for the SMR deployment. That means we have to consider safety, security, and peaceful use while ensuring the regulatory effectiveness. While really exist an international legal instruments. Generally, it encompasses the SMR topic, but their unique characteristic, particularly for the floating nuclear power plants, require a due consideration of the potential impact on the legal side. It is suggested to have also a close collaboration between legal and technical experts. This is essential to ensure an international legal instrument that remains fit for purpose, especially if we address nuclear reliability for the SMR. The development also, the adaptive regulatory approach and innovative licensing processes is crucial. It is important to early engage between the regulators and the vendors. Bilateral and multilateral cooperation, particularly through the NESI, the Nuclear Harmonization and Standard Initiative of the agency, is very important for building and enhancing the regulatory capacity. About the topic of Group C, safety, security, and standards, we confirm that defense in depth, the fundamental safety functions, the use of approaches like deterministic and probabilistic analysis, they are fundamental for the SMR design. There is still continuous interest on topics like the passive safety systems and the severe accidents. We need to systematically consider the interfaces between safety, security, and safeguards, because they are very important since the design stage of SMRs. The 3S should be considered in a holistic way, for example, via risk assessment and risk-informed decision-making process. The security by design, as well as the safeguard by design, but the security by design must address physical and computer security in a systematic way, with a particular emphasis on the vital area identification and the mitigation of insider threat. There is the need for performance-based approaches, take into account the graded approach principles, and in order to support autonomous and remote operations of SMRs, it is very important a sort of regulatory flexibility and adaptation to the new technologies like the already mentioned artificial intelligence. The international collaboration is also important in order to share experiences in the application of such advanced technologies, for example, digital twins and machine learning, and also on activities on modeling, on the modeling and simulation side, for example, for the common approaches for SMR. This is a very important issue. To complete the safety, security, and standards, the agency is continuing to support embarking countries in the enhancement of their safety infrastructure. An important topic, the identification of the emergency planning zone for the SMR. This type of activity reflects the different methodologies. So we need further research as well as the agency guidance for the member states on this specific topic. The safeguard by design is again another very important topic to be timely for the timely deployment of SMRs, and we need the continued communication with the member states on the scope of safeguards by design, since it is needed for the development phase. Advanced technologies were found in SMRs will require new safeguards approaches to reduce the cost and burden of safeguard implementation. It was highlighted the need for a new paradigm in industry and operator engagement, starting early and then usual and voluntary, to facilitate this type of efficiency. Again, an early engagement also between industry operators, regulators, and the agency is crucial for developing efficient safeguards implementation that require new approaches. About the last group, the topic of Group D, the consideration to facilitate the deployment of SMRs. National energy planning strategies of different countries are increasingly considered nuclear, including SMRs in order to achieve the net zero emission targets. We need reliable cost estimates, innovative financing and contracted approaches to improve the confidence towards the SMR near-term deployment, especially if we are considering newcomer countries. We need communication strategies that has to be proactive, transparent and inclusive, informed by the lesson learned at international level. These are important for the societal aspects in nuclear policy making and the stakeholder engagement in order to support the inclusion of SMRs. The milestone approach was considered as, again, a pivotal instrument to support the deployment of SMRs. There was a last revision of the milestone approach. It was involved also highlighted the early involvement of all the stakeholders, including vendors and project sponsors, that could support the acceleration of the deployment of SMRs. The last slide, it was mentioned that there is an increasing number of international cooperation initiatives which brings regulatory bodies together to examine the SMR design, and it is helping to exchange opinion and to reach a common understanding that is very important for the harmonization towards a harmonized licensing process. A couple of examples from United States and Canada, CNNC and the National Regulatory Commission, they are collaborating on the advanced design. And also in Europe, there are 6 European regulators that are collaborating in the joint early review. These type of initiatives were commended by the international organizations like OECD, NIA, WNA, and the same agency through the NESI initiative. Shifting from the economy of scales, that is typical for the large reactors, to the economy of multiples, for the SMRs, we have the potential to have a higher learning rate per unit. These are features that are among the factors that can advantage the SMR deployment. Last but not least, the LCOE, the standardized levelized cost of electricity, is not enough for evaluating the full economic impact, since in some countries, for example, the urbanization, the economic growth, are driving the demand for both electricity and heat. I think that this was the last slide. Let me quote a sentence by DG Grossi in his opening speech on Monday that could synthesize what I show you in a few slides. He mentioned that SMR are one of the most promising, exciting, and necessary technological developments in recent times, and are now becoming a reality. I think that is also a commitment for our world nuclear community. Last but not least, let me join Maria before leaving the floor to Aline. Let me give the warmest thanks to all the members of the Technical Program Committee and all the members of the agency, of the Secretariat, and also to Aline and to Anna for their precious, enthusiastic and precise work that made this event possible. They are part of this success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marco, for your personal involvement. And yes, I can confirm it's such a pleasure to work with you. Thank you. So let's now move to the closing remarks from our 2 Deputy Directors General, whose support and encouragement throughout our journey have been essential. So we will start with DDG Mikhail Shudakov, Head of the Nuclear Energy Department, my boss, with takeaways on technology, capacity building, and other industrial aspects discussed during the conference. So DDG Shudakov, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aline. Dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, this past week has been full of rich discussions, insight and ideas that will help shape the future of nuclear energy. I'd like to touch on some of the key points we've covered across the plenary sessions, from innovative SMRs and capacity building to infrastructure development, industry developments, and economics, and the clean energy transition. The plenary on innovative SMRs offered an overview of Generation 4 designs, from sodium-cooled fast reactors to molten salt reactors. While these technologies bring benefits in terms of safety and efficiency, there are technical, regulatory, and cost concerns to address. Some regulators are making significant efforts to prepare for innovative SMRs, setting up good practices for others to follow. International cooperation remains key to accelerate the safe and effective deployment of Generation 4 technologies. For the agency, it is essential that we continue fostering international cooperation, working collaboratively with other international organizations like with the Generation 4 International Forum, relevant entities, and our interested member states. Throughout the conference, one thing we kept coming back to was the importance of investing in people. In the capacity building plenary, we heard that this activity is not just about technology. It's about making sure we have the right talent and experience to support SMR development and deployment. That starts with education and training, both on a national and international scale. And we heard participants underscore the role of the IAEA milestones approach as a pivotal instrument to support the deployment of SMRs, although with proper grading when applicable. Early involvement of all stakeholders, including vendors and project sponsors, can support the acceleration of deployment. And innovative financing and contracting opens new possibilities for newcomers to access nuclear energy. We also discussed how crucial it is for countries, particularly newcomers, to establish strong human resource strategies. The need for partnerships among industry, universities, and government was highlighted as key to growing the next generation of nuclear professionals. There is a real challenge in attracting and retaining talent in the nuclear sector, and that's something we all need to think about if we want this field to thrive in the long term. Another major topic was the industrial side of SMRs, especially as the designs start moving from the drawing board into actual construction. The plenary on innovative industrial involvements from design to manufacturing brought some great insights on the importance of enhancing communication and transparency between the nuclear industry and its suppliers. Early potential engagement will be key for projects to show that suppliers can present innovative ideas with potential for a long-term relationship. There is also a cultural shift towards innovation, and suppliers will need time for alignment, so start early. Using standard industrial solutions for components and services are also keys to succeeding on time and budget. And artificial intelligence can streamline our work both today but even more tomorrow. Meanwhile, workforce skills and training are a focus area not only for regulators and operators, but for suppliers as well. All elements of the supply chains will be crucial for fast and economical SMR deployment. The construction experience and large NPPs and of the few SMR deployment can be leveraged to support the upcoming SMRs projects. Continued support is needed for the R&D side of the industry to help innovations be demonstrated to the regulator and operator in parallel with the development of the associated codes and standards. On the materials front, this exciting research happening particularly with high temperature nickel alloys and advanced stainless steels, which could solve some of the key challenges in molten salt reactor environment. Advancements in digital technologies and cybersecurity standards also highlight how crucial it is to protect these technologies from emerging threats. Ensuring secure and efficient deployment will be a priority as SMRs roll out. Moving on, Industry Night, organized together with the World Nuclear Association, was a unique and exciting side event. For the first time, we saw partners from state-owned and private sectors come together to discuss how SMRs could be deployed in new ways. We learned about the progress made by light water reactor developers at different stages of deployment. We talked about how low-pressure SMRs, like those using liquid metal or gas cooling, could bring nuclear power closer to some end users, like industrial process heat plants or district heating systems. There was also groundbreaking discussion on using SMRs in the maritime industry. What emerged is that SMRs are more than just a new type of nuclear technology. They represent a shift in how we think about energy solutions. And this shift is being driven by the needs of end users. Companies no longer just want to own reactors. They want tailored energy solutions that meet their specific demands. To be sure, the role of SMRs in the clean energy transition was a recurring theme. SMRs have the potential to replace fossil fuel plants, particularly coal. Their flexibility in managing fluctuation in energy demand makes them a good complement to renewables like solar and wind, helping to stabilize grids and reduce curtailment. Of course, none of this will happen without reliable cost estimates and the right market conditions. We will need strong policy support and innovative financial models to get SMRs off the ground, particularly in new markets. Advanced construction techniques and serious production could help lower cost, making SMRs more competitive and accessible. Finally, the AI platform on SMRs and their applications was repeatedly highlighted this week for its central role in coordinating the agency's activities on SMRs and delivering support to member states from technology development and deployment to safety, security, and safeguards. This week also kicked off with the distribution of our 2024 SMR booklet on advances in SMR development, and its online supplement, the 2024 ARIS SMR catalog, featuring 68 active SMR designs. To sum up, this was a groundbreaking week, starting from the incredible attendance at the conference, demonstrating the excitement about the promising technology. The conference has shown that SMRs are not just futuristic concept. They are very much within reach. But to make them a key part of our energy future, it's going to take teamwork across borders, industries, regulators, and many sectors. And harmonization and standardization will play a key role here. The discussions we've had here are just the beginning. On behalf of everyone at the Department of Nuclear Energy, I want to thank you for your participation and for sharing your expertise. Let's take the momentum we've built here and turn it into action. And also I would like, of course, to thank all the secretaries and organizers and our President, Maria, and also to thank that scientific secretaries, Anna and Aline, and also Mark. Thanks for your personal high input in order this conference would be successful. And frankly speaking, I'm here already many years. For the first time, I see so full interest, full hall, and even closing. When I'm closing, it's 1/3. But here, no seats. This is, of course, the great interest and great show and highlight and great success of our conference. And thanks again to our presidents, our scientific secretaries, and thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So, last but not least, let me now welcome DDG Lydie Evrard, Head of the Nuclear Safety and Security Department, with takeaways on regulatory aspect and of the important role of the IAEA in supporting member states and other stakeholders in their SMR activities. So, DDG Evrard, Lydie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aline. Distinguished Conference President Maria Korsnick, distinguished Conference Chair Marco Ricotti, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the end of this first IAEA conference on SMRs, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for your active participation and engagement until the very last minute. Over the past few days, we have shared valuable insights, built new connections, and explored innovative ideas that will undoubtedly shape our future. I'm sure that we are all now more aware of the potential opportunities that the SMRs can bring, as well as the challenges ahead. We all share a common goal: to ensure the reliable, safe, and secure deployment of SMRs. During this week-long event, we have delved deeply into a very wide range of aspects related to SMRs, including design and technology, regulatory requirements, as well as safety, security, and safeguards. And the discussions have been rich, the insights profound, and our commitment to safety and security in this area of advanced and innovative technologies remains unwavering. As we innovate and advance nuclear technology, we have to ensure that we do so without compromising safety and security, and this is of paramount importance. Proven safety and security of SMRs designs, as well as demonstration of their safe and secure operation, can accelerate the deployment of these new technologies. Rather than being seen as impediments, regulatory requirements are essential to pave the way for the reliability of safe and secure SMRs and for the broader acceptance of these new reactors so that they can be integrated into the future energy mix of countries. The IAEA is committed to supporting its member states in their safe and secure deployment of SMRs through a number of activities such as the Nuclear Harmonization and Standardization Initiative, NESI. Earlier this week, we briefed our member states during the NESI plenary on the work achieved over the last 2.5 years, and we presented our proposals for the next 2 years, including an additional working group on nuclear security of SMRs. The feedback from member states was useful and positive, acknowledging the effort of the agency in assisting both industry leaders and regulators to better support the safe and secure deployment of SMRs. At a side event of the conference, different departments of the IAEA provided a brief overview on its activities and initiatives to support member states in the reliable deployment of SMRs. Some embarking countries shared their national perspectives and how the agency is supporting them as they develop the nuclear power programs. Capacity building is one of the key methods through which the agency supports countries by providing training, education, and developing human resources. In this regard, the agency is launching 2 new initiatives: the School for Regulating SMRs and the SMR Regulation and Collaboration Hub. These initiatives are designed to help regulators prepare for the licensing of SMRs by providing specialized training, fostering collaboration, and sharing knowledge and experience to ensure a robust regulatory framework. Also, during this week's conference, regulators from both advanced nuclear countries and those embarking on nuclear energy programs came together to discuss enhanced regulatory preparedness, innovation, and collaboration for the safe and secure deployment of SMRs. They highlighted the efforts made by regulatory bodies to prepare for the deployment of innovative reactor technologies and addressed the challenges faced by newcomer countries as they adapt and enhance their regulatory capabilities. The role of international collaboration, including initiatives and activities led by the IAEA, was emphasized as key and crucial in ensuring the reliable deployment of SMRs. One of the pioneer initiatives through which the agency supports its member states in addressing vital issues in the regulation of small modular reactors is the SMR Regulators Forum. This week, this forum commemorated its 10th anniversary at the side event celebrating a decade of shaping the future of nuclear safety. Efforts of the SMR Regulators Forum and the agency in building the capacity of regulators to prepare for licensing of SMRs were highlighted during this side event. SMRs offer a unique potential opportunity to achieve a clean energy transition and enhance energy security. They can play an important role in reducing carbon emissions and providing reliable power. By integrating safety and security at the very early stages of their development, we can ensure that SMRs fulfill their potential and contribute significantly to our global energy future. International cooperation is also crucial for the successful deployment of SMRs. Collaborative efforts enable the sharing of best practices and lessons learned, harmonization of regulatory approaches, and building a wealth of knowledge and expertise. The IAEA SMR conference demonstrates this spirit of collaboration by bringing together such a large audience of experts, regulators, and stakeholders from around the world to discuss and address different aspects of SMRs. All of us, regulators, industry leaders, policymakers, researchers, and the IAEA need to keep the momentum we have built here and continue our steadfast collaboration to address the challenges and seize the opportunities that lie ahead. To conclude, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Maria Korsnik, the conference president, and to Marco Ricotti, the conference chair, for their dedicated leadership, valuable guidance, and vision. I would also like to express my gratitude to the co-scientific secretaries, Anna Bradford and Aline Descloiseaux, respectively from the Department of Nuclear Safety and Security, Division of Nuclear Installation Safety, and Department of Nuclear Energy, Division of Nuclear Energy of Nuclear Power Plants, for their commitment and dedicated hard work that made this conference an immense success, and my thanks go to Anna, Aline, and their teams. This conference has truly been a team effort involving representatives from across the entire agency. In addition to the work of the two departments, NS and NE, we also received significant support from the Department of Safeguards and the Office of Legal Affairs. I would also like to convey my appreciation to our colleagues in the Department of Management, and in particular the Division of dealing with conference services, and the team for their unwavering dedication and effort in successfully organizing this very big conference. Thanks also to the DGG for Technical Cooperation for his department's effort in supporting countries, especially embarking countries, in the deployment of SMRs. Finally, I want to once again extend my gratitude to each and every one of you for your active participation, insightful contributions, and enthusiasm, which make this conference a notable milestone in the international cooperation on the development of SMRs. Your dedication and expertise are the driving forces behind our progress. I trust that this week all of us have learned something new. I encourage you all to take the knowledge and inspiration gained here and apply it in this specialized area of SMRs. Let's stay connected and continue these important conversations. Let's live here with a renewed commitment to fostering a safe, secure, and sustainable future through the reliable deployment of SMRs. Thank you once again for your participation, and I wish you all safe travels home. I now declare the International Conference on SMRs and their applications to be closed. Thank you.
How can it feel this wrong from this moment? How can it feel this wrong from this moment? How can it feel this wrong from this moment? How can it feel this wrong? The tide is high, but I'm holding on. I'm gonna be your number one. I'm not the kind of girl who gives up just like that. Oh no, it's not the thing up just like that. Oh no, the tide is high, but I'm holding on. I'm gonna be your number one, Every girl wants you to be her man, but I'll wait, my dear, till it's my turn. I'm not the kind of girl who gives up just like that. Oh no, the tide is high, but I'm holding on. I'm gonna be your number one, number one.
Well, I'm